If you wait, I'll get you. Just you wait.
Let's get this stuff open. Oh, I am so sleepy. Why is there a random knocking sound on my wall?
Heavy knock ghost.
It's Zen, he's in your walls.
No, he got let out a while ago. He shouldn't. I think. Enjoy stream.
Hello there. How's it going, everybody? Is this working? Does this sound good? Okay. Yes. So you're saying that I can speak a little bit lower into the mic now that it's a lot closer to my face? Yeah, we've actually got some new stream upgrades here. Ugh. Ugh. Wait, did I ping everyone? I did ping everyone, right? Yeah, okay. Alrighty. Let me get this tweet out and we should be good to go. Yeah, when are we getting your boy Kong Ming season 2? Isn't that like on the docket? All right, the tweet is live. Go give it some love. Just the recap movie. Okay. Cartosis, thank you for the resub. Czar, thank you for the resub as well. You guys are getting pretty deep. Okayest, thank you. I keep forgetting to get back to you. I am terribly sorry. I am just having a awful time lately. Alrighty. I'm getting used to a change right now. That's why it's taking me a little bit longer to get going here, chat. But we should be good. Let me just grab today's art. Hello, Court Mage. So, today, chat, we have the return of Cad's mic arm. It is like right here in my face. I would prefer if it weren't this close. I'll probably tweak it off stream, but I will find the exact like right amount of like positioning for it. Either way, this should prevent the whole like, hey, I'm all the way over here talking into the mic issue that seemingly happened all the time. So it is what it is. Shortcake Paladin, thank you for the 4 months. Appreciate it. How are you doing? Here is today's artwork for each of you on each side of things. Hope you guys enjoy and go give the artist some love. It is a fantastic Budimante. NA, we have the Barbie raids as you guys are aware, and you can see just how many times I've already managed to farm Barbados. It's not a lot. It's just one of those things where I don't really need Barbados that much, so we're going to go ahead and do him. I'm going to show you how I'm easily clearing him. It's really pretty brain dead. I still managed to have a teapot even, but it's a pretty decent comp for me. Everybody here can bond, and nobody's in danger of, like, over-bonding, so... Danny Ping as well. Yeah, and, you know, I've talked about this before, but basically, as I go to show you guys the Barbados raid, like, one of the issues at play is just the fact that I simply do not need the materials. So, again, like, there's nothing actually in here that Barbados gives, if I remember correct. Let me see if I can go look at the actual loot table for him. Could be under main quest. So, control room Barbados. I'm mainly doing it for bond. I mean, I'm gonna say this, guys. You'll get the bond either way. There will always be good times to farm. Yeah, it might be nice here, but it's really not that worth. I'm gonna say this again for everybody in the back. Bond is nice, but it's not worth the efficiency of everything else. So I'd say if you're doing it only for bond, that's a bad reason. If you're doing it for bond and QP and, you know, like drops and stuff like that, I think that's perfectly fine. But make sure you're getting more out of this than just one thing. Usually it's not a good recipe for doing it. Like for me, chat, all I would be getting is leveling my Mystic code. That's it. Like and bond, I guess. And I'm just like, it's not that big of a deal. Rather save my apps for Tesla Fest. Yeah, and I think that's another thing to consider is one, you're not getting the event complete from doing this, and two, that you have another raid coming up here shortly. I'm just trying to look. I'm not seeing the actual like full list of his drops all of a sudden. I'm only seeing like the base 5 of them, which is really weird. Okay, well, I found that. Don't worry about it, chat. What raid, Cat? Yeah, I'm just really quick looking to see, but for some odd reason, I can't seem to find the list of the drops at the moment. I'm pretty sure Ern's Guide has it. Let me see. Up against you, hell. Yeah, so the Barbados raid drops Dragon Reverse Scales, which are not here. Hearts of the Foreign God, which are not here. Sorry, when I say not here, like they're not a material that I need. Okay, and this is now subtracting out events so you can see, right? Homunculus babies, which are not here. Gears, which are not here. Pages, which are not here. Lanterns, which are not here. Dust, which is not here, and Bones, which is not here. There's quite a bit of good drops here. For those of you guys that are a newer account, or maybe just someone that's been a bit more casual over the years, there's some really good drops here for you. For, I'd say, more veteran players that have gone harder, odds are you don't need this nearly as much. You're going to be probably somewhere like me, kind of looking more towards the future and at future material drops. So keep in mind the Barbados raid is a raid that's dating all the way back to the original Solomon Temple of Time. Thus, it really pretty much only has those resources. Hilariously enough, I actually ended up having to use that. That's the first time out of the runs that I have done that I've had to use Astrea's, or that I had to use the cleanse on Astrea. But that's it, chat. It's just a couple button presses. There's probably a faster comp, but knowing the amount of times I plan to run this is not going to matter. But yeah, that was the original Barbados moan for any of you guys that hadn't heard it before. Very close to QP Hill, so I decided to farm a bit. Also needed gold assassin gems. Right, yeah. And I'm going to say at the end of the day, if you guys need more stuff from it, I think that's worth. If you're only needing like one mat or like one, you know, like just QP or something like that, or just bond, I don't think this is that worth. I think you will have other opportunities to, and don't get me wrong, right? Like everybody always needs bond. Bond is a constant. So keep that in the back of your mind that when you're popping apples just for bond, that there is probably a better opportunity at some point in the future to save those apples for. Probably. Something where you get more than just bond for it. Oberon gives the possibility to use many single target units. He definitely does. I think the thing to be careful with regards to Oberon is Oberon works in any comp, and as you begin to go forward in the game, especially with 90++ content, wow, I get double arts back to back. You'll end up in scenarios where like it's just going to kind of be the case that you're taking Oberon a lot. And I think the problem with that just, you know, it inherently boils down to the fact that you will end up really bonding your Oberon, and so you kind of got to be careful with like not wanting to over bond. And this is another concept that I think people need to understand when we're focusing on bond, is the concept of bond efficiency and actually spreading your bond around. If you guys take a unit immediately up into the high bond levels, especially up to bond 15, you've functionally bricked that unit for efficiency purposes. And what that means is that anytime you have to use that unit in the future, just because the content mandates it for some reason, it now then results in you being less efficient. So usually it's to your benefit to find different ways to solve this. You can see I'm taking a Castoria here, but it's not mine. I'm instead taking Reigns and Waver on the back line here. So there's really not too much going on in terms of like, me actually like worrying about my bond. Instead, it's just simply don't take my own Castoria and I should be good. And that is largely how this one's working. Martha Santa, who we just got, will give your DPS a nice power mod here. That's definitely true. Yeah, I could probably get away with using her. Hilariously enough, I've used her a ton on JP. I have not really used her yet on NA. I'd have to double check to make sure that mine is actually up to date on NA. She should be, though. I think the issue would be the matter of lores. What do you think my Castoria is still Bond 5? Yeah, Chat, there are some times where it just really sucks to have to do things another way, and you go, oh man, I want double Castoria for this, so that I can go full blown, like, smooth brain on it and just say, like, I don't want to have to think, I don't want to have to try, I just want to double Castoria my way right through this and kind of like laugh all the way to the bank. And you can do that, right? And that's usually the times that I save my Castoria for. Because mine, chat, I've been kind of in this stance now in NA, especially due to the way JP is treating Bond as we go forward, that they're not trying to give us a Bond 20. They're not doing Bond sharing as far as we can tell. So to me, this represents the don't do what the devs tell you to, which is the devs trying to tell you to roll new units to replace your max Bond units. Don't do that. That's what they want you to do. That's feeding their bad take on this. Instead, you should try to minimize the amount of impact that you're having to one character, and instead trying to spread it out, trying to make yourself more efficient over time, so that way you can keep using the characters that you love for longer. I think that's a better approach. The devs will see people taking such an approach, and I think the devs will eventually relent. But as it stands right now, they're in the standpoint of, just pay us more, in effect. And I don't think that's a good stance for them to have. So naturally, it's going to be to our benefit. And it usually is, right? Whenever the devs want you to do something, there's two schools of thought. You can either do it to make it easier on yourself, or you can not do it. And usually not doing it is harder, but it saves you money. And that's kind of why it ends up boiling down to, like, who do you want to prioritize? Your money or the devs? And to me, kind of, usually is going to fall on your money, but it just depends. Boycott Ruler Scotty? No, see, I wouldn't even say it's stuff like that. I would say instead it's stuff like, basically not getting, like, okay, so I'll give you a better example of this. It's not Ruler Scotty. It's not the meta support. The meta supports have no replacement. You can't really just go out and roll another meta support unless you don't have them, right? But at the end of the day, like, there is no replacement for Castoria. There's just Castoria and then people that do things less than Castoria. Where I think it matters potentially is when you're starting to talk about bonding up, like, let's say, like Morgan Le Fay, Musashi Berserker, yada, 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 right? Like some sort of like Omni farmer that you've been using a ton will just go out and roll another Omni farmer. And it's like, well, I really shouldn't have to. And you don't. There is nothing like forcing you guys to. I'll go ahead and pop an apple here, chat. There you go. You guys will get a singular bronze apple out of me. And the idea behind that is, like, you're not really gaining too much other than by rolling you gain bond efficiency, but by rolling you lost bond efficiency. What do I mean? The entire point to being more bond efficient is getting more quartz. If you were having to spend quartz to make quartz, I'll give you an example of what this reminds me of. This reminds me of back in the day, I used to see certain whales would actually go out and, they would try to like level 100 like CEs that were rarely ever used on support, purely from the mindset that if they ever had to use that CE on support and it was level 100, that would pop their support to the top of the list, thus earning them more FP. And it's like, yes, that is true. If your unit has better stats, they will appear at the top of the list to someone sorting by stats. The problem with that logic is it becomes this self-feeding sort of your self-fulfilling prophecy, really, where essentially in order to make more FP, they spent tons of FP trying to level up the craft essence, such to the point that there's just no way they would ever actually gain the benefit from that. They were losing far more than they would be gaining. And to me, it just didn't really matter when the vast majority of people were sitting there just kind of using the caster slot over and over and over again. So it kind of is the same thing here. It's like if you have to spend quartz to make quartz, it better be worth it. And I'm going to tell you it's not in those sets of circumstances. Like rolling a new unit to get, basically that amount it over time. Yeah, like if you were to luck sack the unit on like a ticket or something, that could absolutely pay off for you. But odds are you will not, and odds are it will basically end up not working in your favor. I think you got to it yesterday, but thoughts on the SR Collab units section. So God, chat's gonna hate me for this because I definitely went on the record before they announced it in that stream saying I didn't care if Arya got chosen. I still really don't. Like, I know there's a ton of people that got really upset. Hilariously enough, I actually called Yui Shoisetsu being there because I was sitting in Discord watching Trubs' stream and talking with people that were also up late, and I was sitting there going like, man, I would love it if they made Yui Shosetsu an actual character. I'm like, but they won't. And then they did, and I was like, holy shit. And I did mention back at the time that there is a reason that that unit could be. I'm not going to talk about that for spoiler reasons, but definitely an interesting thing nonetheless. I'm going to say this, chat. One, for those of you that want Arya, it is entirely possible that Arya could still come to FGO. They're like, just because the unit doesn't come with the collab doesn't mean it can't come at all. Two, I'm not surprised that she didn't. I think her popularity, especially in recent days, has largely been driven and exploded from internet memes. So I'm going to say this. Before the game comes out, people that like Tamamo go, oh man, I can't wait to see Arya. Then the game comes out, and then basically people go like, oh man, I liked Arya, she was pretty cute, yada, yada, yada. Okay? And so you just had this like select group of people that were really liking Arya. And this is just my external analysis on this, kind of watching the popularity and how it has trended. Then, months later down the line, much more recently here, they come out with the animated short. And the animated short caused the popularity to jump up quite a bit because people just thought she was stupid. People thought she looked cute. And so it was endearing to people. Then from there, I saw internet memes kind of focusing on it, and it took off even more. But here's the thing I'm going to say about this. If you only like Arya because of an internet meme, you don't really like Arya too much. And hilariously enough, it's this sort of like person that I'm seeing complaining a lot that are functionally the bandwagoneers. They're running around basically claiming that they've liked her from the very get-go, but the reality was these people were like nowhere to be seen in the original like sort of wave of interest in both the game and the character. So at the end of the day, I found it really funny to see that because these people often end up being the singular most annoying people in the entire community. They just jump from one meme to the next. They overreact to everything, and they basically act like some sort of injured party. And I think they're naturally setting themselves up for being upset, and that's exactly what they want. They basically just want to sit there and throw temper tantrums all the time. Again, though, like, do I think Arya is a cool character and someone that is worthy of being an FGO? Sure. And like I said, I don't think it's impossible for her to be in, but I will admit that she really doesn't have that much in the way of animations. She doesn't really have anything other than boosting the stats, basically, of Yuri. So if there was any character, I think, that had a easy case to be left out, ironically enough, it was her. And I know that's not something a lot of people want to hear, but yeah, to me, it kind of just is what it is. And I'm gonna say this as well. I think if you give this like a month, I think this will be a lost issue, and the vast majority of people won't care about it anymore. And the reason for that is simply going to be that it was just people being upset for being upset's sake. I empathize with the actual Tamamo fans that really wanted her and stuff like that, but I've also seen people try to make weird claims saying like, oh, Tamamo never gets anything. Guys, that's just delusional. Tamamo at this point has gotten more than any Rin fan has. So I'm sorry, but that's just not a actual good take on this. No matter how you look at that, that's just is what that is. But like I said, again, I think this is the sort of issue that it will largely blow over. I think the selection of the units is good. I think the selection is, other than Yui Shoisetsu, expected, right? And we'll see if there's more. I've heard that Mr. Chu said there's no second banner. I'll believe that when I see it, but it just kind of is what it is. The FGO communities really try hard in Toxic AF. Yeah, I mean, I saw someone the other day on Twitter that was basically spouting actual nonsense and trying to like claim it was lore. I'm all for joking around and stuff like that, but I think the issue that we have in the community is that the community, basically the only things that the community takes seriously are like misinformation and trying to retweet and like the hell out of it like that, and then again, like kind of getting upset over things. I don't really see very much serious discussion about the actual lore, and when I do, it's unfortunately just blatantly spoilery. Like I saw another person saying something like, "Did you guys know that an LB7?" And I'm like, no, the whole reason no one knew that is because they didn't read LB7. Why are you telling them that? Like, so it's one of those deals where it's like you either read it and you know, or you didn't read it and you just got spoiled. It's really stupid to me how some people in the community act. But again, I know I'm like the weird guy on this, that like I just value not getting spoiled a lot. So it is what it is. It wasn't just Arya, though. We didn't get a Musashi costume. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say this. I did feel a little bait and switched with the fact that they like pulled up like the craft essence art, making it look like it was an actual Ascension art, and so that like we didn't get a costume. I thought that sucked. I'll go ahead and say I think it sucks that Musashi didn't get a costume. That's stupid. She should have. That's it though. Like you're not gonna see me go like crazy on the internet over it. Or you could just come as Valentine's Day servant. I mean, yeah, like anything's possible at this point, chat. The devs have already proven that they can do whatever the hell they want when they want to. It's just a matter of will they. And in that regard, I kind of understand the community trying to complain to get their voice heard. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just so much as they're, again, in general, like if you're going to complain about stuff, complain constructively. But when half the complaints are just memes themselves, it's just people just drama and clout farming, and that's all it is. Did you know that in LB7 they added Blitzball? God, I wish. That would be awesome. Awesome. It feels crazy that a my ungrailed 777 Super Orion can easily one-turn the boss. I mean, it's Super Orion. I'm also going to say your probably your 777 Super Ryan could also not clear the boss in one turn. When you get screwed on card RNG. But no, I mean, I don't know what it is. I've seen some really like hot takes, some really sensationalist takes on Twitter, especially lately, and I'm just like, if it doesn't feel to you guys like I'm as active on Twitter, that's kind of why. Like, I don't know. I feel like I can't interact with some of these people because like everything they do is just a joke. And not like even a joke. Like, I want to say this, chat. I love jokes. I'm a real like comedic type of person. I love watching comedy. I basically believe that in general, laughing is like one of the best things you can do for your health and stuff like that. So like, I usually like to unwind and relax and stuff like that. But what I see nowadays more than anything is it's not a joke. It's basically maliciousness disguised as a joke. And what they do is they just take full-blown maliciousness, and then when someone dares complain, it's, oh, it was a joke. Why are you taking this so seriously, man? And I'm like, dude, that's just the gaslighting behavior that you often see like bullies and assholes do. So it's like, you're not actually joking. Yeah, it's just a prank, bro. So it's like, if they were actually jokes, I would prefer that way more. But Twitter, most of the time, just does that gaslighting BS. Coded in a tiny bit of sarcasm, it's completely fine, right? As long as you make it obvious, it's difficult to tell things like sarcasm on the internet. Like, especially when you don't know the person. I know, interestingly enough, we were just talking about Joe Cat before stream, and one of the issues that Joe Cat had recently had is somebody like spoofed his video, and he got like upset over it and kind of overreacted, but he had no idea that the person was like actually joking when they were doing that. And to be clear, we're still not sure that the person actually was, but at the end of the day, it's like, I understand when people like try to do sarcastic stuff and then they kind of, it's kind of like fucking around and finding out. And then they go like, oh man, I did too much there, and I regret it. So now I'm going to like try to pull it back. But I definitely understand that a lot of people, don't have a good sense of humor on things. So, and in general, I think at the end of the day, it's usually a better idea to assume ignorance rather than malice, right? You just assume that somebody is stupid rather than they're doing it on purpose. But there's definitely people that do stuff on purpose and then try to weasel their way out of it. So it is what it is. Okay, song skip. Okay. Will you be rolling tomorrow? I don't actually have a lot to be able to roll on, JP. You guys know I went pretty deep in the tank for Saber. So at the end of the day, probably not. Though I am intrigued to see the unit, and I would potentially like to roll for her on NA. Hear about the suspicious update on NA last night into the raids? Yes, I heard that that when Barbados first came out, that the kill bots were not online, and that's why like they just the raid just was not dying at all. And then I guess they updated it and turned the kill bots on. Maybe they thought that NA would actually be hype enough to kill it, but yeah, that just wasn't the case. I can actually tell that from my YouTube metric numbers. The Tunguska raid had way more people paying attention to that video compared to the case files event. He was so tanky for a while. It's chat, like the way to understand this is we're not actually the ones killing it. Nothing you are doing is influencing the rate of the raid. It will naturally just kill itself. Surge, they give the 57. Or likely they were just overcorrecting to prevent an Ivan. I don't think so. I think they just straight up maybe assumed there was going to be some hype there, but it is what it is. they turned it on, and so now it dej fast. Surely, Oberon, you have enough firepower to kill with a brave chain, right? Okay, he does. Lately, no server is big enough to beat the server ticking. Yeah, and I don't think there's a problem with that. I actually like raids better when they die like in a set way, rather than like. Let's be real, chat. Did anyone really enjoy the Gouda 5 rerun raids? Like, man, those were awesome with how they like died in like 2 minutes, right? Like that's kind of the issue that you have is when raids are set really low, when they go really fast, like they're there and gone before anyone even gets the opportunity to farm. So I'm usually way more on the side of just make it a like long day long raid that's planned out. Jaman for life, thank you for the follow, and Young Juvenile, thank you for the follow as well. Also, Desta Hades. Went to bed and they were gone by morning, yeah. Is any going to enjoy the hours-long raids of Gouda 8? I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, I've seen also people like freaking out about Barbados, thinking like, "Oh my god, I really gotta like get farming on this. It's gonna be dead soon." And I'm like, "It's not. It's not, chat. Like this raid will at least last through the evening. I think. Like it's just we kind of knew how long this sucker was gonna last." My favorite upcoming event on an A. Ooh, that's a difficult question. Probably Summer 7, but I guess it depends because I don't really know the stories, so it's like I can only conjecture based off the actual play of the event and whether or not I like the units involved. If you're referring to me, I know I'm overreacting. No, but thank you for outing yourself. No, like straight up. I just I've seen people all over the internet today basically like acting that way. So usually whenever I make commentary chat, I don't target any one person. If I am giving you an anecdote about people, it usually means that I've seen several people that are doing that at that point. Collab is tomorrow. Which unit is having a banner? Should be Raida is getting a banner, which will be as an Avenger. So that's going to make things really confusing and definitely unavoidable for spoiler purposes. But we will be going over the units tomorrow. We'll have Yui Shoisetsu and Ryder, obviously, to go over. And then we'll see. I probably will not get to do a lot of banner review tomorrow. And that's why, like, chat, I think I'm going to do a little bit of farming here on Barbados. And that's it. Like, I really don't think I'm going to sit on Barbados for very long here. I feel bad only doing like 5 runs of something. I'm a whale. I'm supposed to be doing more. So it's like, it's kind of this like weird logic where it's like, it doesn't sit right with me to do so little. Pick link, type exclamation point art. After the update, it spiked to about 15,000 deaths every 2 minutes, so it suddenly went way faster. Yeah, we have kill bots. That's all it is. And we always have, chat. Like, none of that should be, like, that crazy or astounding to anyone. It's pretty much par for the course at this point in FGO. Okay. I got my 7 reverse scales from Barbados. I'm good. Yeah. Did you also see the NA Singularity reparation support news? I am surprised to see that we got the part 1 of the campaign. I was not expecting that. Like in a weird way, we had already gotten a bunch of the stuff from it, so I had assumed that they were like just not going to actually give us anything. Like that they would basically just phone it in, kind of. I guess it makes sense because like all their like the really the only thing you're getting with part 1 here is the return of the tower event. So would raids fail without killbots? Yes, potentially. Those homunculus babies will help a lot. Listen, for some of you guys, this raid is absolutely fantastic. For me, not so much. By the way, chat, like, you guys think this will be dead before you wake up tomorrow? It ain't even halfway. Like, this raid is coming up on being out for 24 hours. Like, y'all got probably another 24 hours before it's dead. So, you still got plenty of time. My apple situation, man. Maybe I won't spend that many apples. I don't know. This feels a little... I ain't gonna have a lot going into that lotto. And I know I'll end up having to pop rainbow apples, so to speak, in that lotto, but it's like, if I could reduce that somehow, that'd be decent. Lack of Jalter animation update also sucks. So this is really interesting, and don't take this the wrong way, guys, because obviously I like Jalter, but I never hear anyone else complain about an animation update for anyone else. Like, I see one every once in a blue moon, but it's always the Jalter animation update that I see people complaining about, which tells me either one of two things: that the Jalter fans are overzealous, which isn't surprising, but they haven't been for years, so I'm kind of surprised by that, or that there's somebody out there that's really pushing for that and is mouthpiecing it a lot, and that like everyone's kind of regurgitating it. Because I'm gonna tell you guys this just from the bottom of my heart: you haven't gotten any animation update in like 2 years. You shouldn't be expecting any at this point. Like, when it happens, it will happen, but until that point, don't expect anything. Like, in all seriousness. She still has a big head, and there's a mouthpiece. Yeah, and more. We have almost 339 hours left. I think you have longer, or I think you have shorter than that. A lot of old servants are outdated, right? Yeah, Jalter is not unique in that regard. She's not like, oh, the one that like got away or anything like that. That's what I'm trying to say, because I love Jalter and I would absolutely love to see her get an animation update, but it's specifically her that I see mentioned a lot, especially recently, and I'm really surprised that that's the case. Oh, that I got the arts down. I should have cleansed that. Well, this may be an interesting one. They have like 6 caster ball servants in the game. Oh, there's a ton. Hey, Avalon's here. Avalon is here. I'm a Jalter fan myself. Should check out my Jalter on my account. No. Chad, I've seen a perfected Jalter. I don't need to see more. Jalter is not a year 1 servant. Yeah, like, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm gonna say this. I think Jalter is absolutely deserving of it. That, like, don't take this the wrong way, right? Like, I'm just mostly pointing out that I'm noticing a common trend lately to complain specifically about Jalter's animation update. And I get that she's like maybe one of the most desired characters that doesn't have it, right? But I find it particularly interesting that nobody seems to bring up any of the other characters that don't have them. to make those in comparison to story animations. I think it's just commonly been accepted at this point that the animation department is one of the like most dogged departments in La Single. Like that they are usually what is behind. They actually talked about that with LB7, that was like a big issue for them. So I'm not surprised. Okay, Kyu is more used than her for single target adventure needs? Doubt. I actually doubt that. Like, chat, don't get me wrong, I think Tyra's popular, but I think a lot of people underestimate how popular Jalter is. There was a point in time in this game where 1 in every 4 players had a Jalter Grail. So, yeah. Well, couldn't be me. Yeah. Back before Solomon? Oh, definitely. Pano, thank you for the follow. Snooze, thank you for the 8 months. Hope you're doing well. I still like Tyra, though. That's fine. Like, chat, remember, this isn't a, like, zero-sum game. Just because, like, I'm sitting here saying this does not mean that, like, you cannot like the other unit or use the other unit. Like, as always, that is always the possibility. Be me and have no grailed servants? That's wild. You should definitely do that. Where's the regular John animation update? Right? I think she originally had one, if I remember correct, to change like how she wields her flag, but I do think it could get better. So how long do I think I'm getting a banner review today? I think I'll start getting a lot further, a lot faster at this point. We keep reaching the point where I like get to a banner where I've covered a ton of the people. The banners themselves do not slow down, but I will have covered the majority of units the further we go in. So that at least saves me from having to recover people. Did I finish the Spishtar one? Yeah. If Cad says he likes something, that means everyone must like them. Maybe that's how I need to start acting, because I feel like that's how other content creators act, chat. Maybe I shouldn't be so open-minded anymore, and I shouldn't allow people to like other things that I dislike or basically dislike on things that I like. Actually, usually I don't allow the latter. If you come in here and you just start shitting on the Saber faces, it's usually a easy recipe to getting, one swift boot out the door. But that's just because, like, welcome to my stream. I don't have to tolerate that. But, and again, like, I think there's a fine line, too. It's not like you can't criticize the Saber faces. It's just like, as long as I don't feel like someone's being malicious again. Everyone must have at least one grailed Saber face by tomorrow. Exactly, yes. You've got homework, chat. Get to it. Or else unicky, snip, snip. Excuse me? Yeah. But Cat, don't you want another Kuro versus Artoria Archer debate? Oh, listen. I've dealt with it all at this point. I have seen so much. What? Did I have the... Oh, okay, I had the arts down. Oh, come on. Come on, Barbados. Come on. I gotta start catching that arts down. Oh, he killed Rhinus as well. Well, that's Assassin on Rider, so that one makes a little bit more sense. Not my streamer, I know, I'm sorry. Working on Morgan and Ruler Lartoria currently? Good. Level 100 Morgan are putting in. Yeah, I will say that. I do feel like there's like Morgan is basically New Age Jalter. So I've really been looking forward to the 7th anniversary, but I'm having a problem. I thought at first it was 3 Saint Courts for every character, but it's only for permanent story and limited. The problem here is that the math is not adding up. Yeah, so it doesn't count for welfares. Welfares have it different. But FP does? No, like most FP units should be in the same boat as the others. It's just there are like 2 FP welfares out there. So that's Nobukatsu and Mary Anning, and both of them count as a welfare. What is he talking about? We get a quality of life later where with every unit that you level up, you get courts. The devs, and I've said this before, but the devs really incentivize playing. So, chat, for years, there was this debate as to like how best to play FGO. And far be it from me to tell you that I have the best way, but the devs eventually ended up going down my way in terms of how they chose to incentivize people to play. And what I mean when I say my way, I mean actually investing in a wide account, leveling up all of your units. They have done everything they can to incentivize wider accounts rather than taller accounts. This is a like strategy gaming term here, but like when I say a wide account, I mean mini units rather than a tall account, which is hyper focused small selections of units. They want you to have more rather than have less. And it makes sense from a dev perspective. They straight up make more money if you have more. So that's kind of why. But, you know, that's why you have tower events. That's why you have all these milestones for leveling up units. And that's why even now they're going to start giving you courts for actually having leveled your units. So, again, I think that's just kind of been proven at this point that the devs have kind of reached that mentality. And I've said this before that, you know, usually it's a better idea anyways to have more units because it's just more capabilities that your account has. You have way more ways of dealing with any given situation. Usually that's the issue that I run into is not, can I kill? It's what should I use to kill? And the deliberations that come from after that. But I've definitely seen people over the years, most of which who don't play the game anymore, that refuse to level up other units. And they basically almost always to a man end up regretting it. So I don't really know why people get stuck in that mentality. It's a gacha game. They're meant for collection. Like chat, almost every gacha game out there at this point is a waifu collector. And that's kind of where I see, you know, obviously FGO headed. When the hell have we had a Setsubun? Well, I mean, last year JP had one. Last year NA had one as well. As a new player, which servant should I try to get? That's a more difficult question. Usually I tell people if there's only one unit I can get, it's Castoria. You've already kind of missed the boat on Koinskaya of Light. Technically, Reigns and Waiver should both be on rate up right now. You can actually get Waiver from the SSR ticket that you start with. But you could potentially roll Reigns, and that would get you 2 50% charges right there off the bat. Castoria will come back in May, and that would be another really solid one. And in the meantime, you just kind of make do with like free to play and potentially, you know, any 4 stars that you get. At which point, like getting a unit like Astray would be really solid for you. So I don't think there's a bad real option. This is actually a pretty decent set of banners for new players at the moment. Right now, my long-term goal is to not need pieces for my account. That's an interesting one because, like, yeah, you have the short-term goal of that, but then as you go even longer, you start getting towards Ordeal Call and Class Score, and that could potentially make it so that you would need it, but I don't think it's a huge issue in that regard. You wait for the updates to come to NA. Bond point farming in NA right now is horrible. Bond point farming on JP right now is also horrible. Bond point farming is always horrible, chat. I feel like I really have to keep harping on this until y'all understand that if you're just farming Bond, you're doing it wrong. I really do mean that. Like, y'all have got to start taking care of the rest of your account. Getting more quartz, especially slowly over time, is not going to really solve that. When you go out of your way to bond point farm, as opposed to actually farming other materials, you end up being slightly more bond efficient. That's it. It's just slightly, because the other person, while they're farming materials, is also gaining bond. We shouldn't just grind Oxford forever? No, please no. Yeah. It's quickly becoming a pet peeve of mine, because I want people to understand that yes, bonding is good and you should always be bonding, but at the same time, that should not be your only goal, and you should not get rid of like everything else for the sake of it. Usually, chat, at this point, like, you know, you can see what's my main goal in FGO. It's basically the Ascension mats. This is where you end up as a whale. When you first start out the game, chat, you end up, you know, like having this need for like statues and monuments and skill gems. And those are kind of your short-term needs. Then as you begin to get past that, you realize your need is QP. Then as you begin to get past that, you realize your need is Ascension materials. And there's no getting past this one. This is always your end-game need. Always. Again, more quartz is always nice. It's more currency in a gacha game. It's just it's usually not worth, you know, dropping everything. Bonding is a goal amongst many, correct. And out of all the other goals are finite, right? We could argue that Ascension materials aren't, because as long as they keep adding new units and as long as you keep rolling new units, they're not. If you ever reach a point, and I'm going to say this as well, chat, if you ever reach a point at which you are done with your Ascension mats, usually that is a very quick recipe to being done with the game. Usually. That kind of means that, like, at that point, you have nothing else really to do in the game, short of just sitting there and degenning your AP down for bond points. You're going to get bored really fast. You're not going to want to play the game anymore. You're not going to see much of a point to anything. And you'll probably live on a more banner-to-banner basis. And that's assuming there are upcoming units that you actually wish to acquire. Wait, what the fuck? 12 billion? For what? What, for like this? Oh, this is nothing. Like, I'm dead serious. This, I'm not even worried about this. This is easily completable. Like, the biggest problem that I have is I can't actually even spend this. Almost all of this is capped behind this. It's all gated behind having the actual materials in order to spend the QP. And by the time I get the actual materials, I'll have the QP. Since you're an Artoria expert, when I get more grails, which Saber should I grail? OG Saber, Lartoria, Alter, or Buntoria. Who are your grails already? Like who have you managed to grail prior to this point? By the way, that is 10 trillion. 100,000 million. I see. That's what the person was referring to, not the QP. The raid lives. Yeah, I told you guys this is not going to die anytime soon. It's not going to die at all. Yeah, we're going to do 3 more runs. I'm going to get to 20, and then no one can say that I didn't do 20. I at least did 20 kills of Barbados. Adding to my... Okay, so chat, here's the other reason that I don't need to farm Barbados. You want to know how many times I've already killed Barbados? Because it's something like over 2,000. Like that is legitimately the reason I don't need Barbados. I have heard this man's death moans way too many times. I'm pretty sure Barbados stays up at night dreaming of me. Okay, like he straight up has nightmares and can't go to sleep because of how many times I have killed this man. You fucking believe? Yeah, 100%. Did I hear you correctly? Yes. That's why you don't need any more hearts. That is exactly the reason. I have chat, I am completely future proofed on certain materials, and what I mean when I say that is the game simply cannot add enough units for me to ever run out so long as I just keep collecting materials from a shop. That's it. I don't have to do anything else. That's what I mean when I say that I'm future proofed, is that like I will never ever 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 have a point where I need to farm that resource ever again. Ever. And hearts are one of those materials. And the reason why is because I went very hard on the initial Barbados raid, and I went very hard on the I think there was a hunting quest after that that I basically, for both those situations, I pulled a 24-hour stream. And so I never had to like do anything. Pen 4 and 5, baby, let's go. Okay, so it would take a sweeping change like that for there to even be consideration. And I am so far ahead on hearts in particular because the heart issue was a timing issue. I had to farm it to have enough to do everything there. But because I had such a temporal lead, I ended up being way ahead now in the future because of it, as the devs eventually switched more towards a lenient approach on hearts and started giving them out a lot more. So yeah, I mean, like, let's say they came out with the pins 4 and 5, would I need hearts? No, not in the slightest. Like, I'm that far ahead on that map. Plus that would still require me to actually like want to do everyone's append as well. Can't do your Scotty strengthening quest. I do need to do that. Thank you. The real one I need to do is actually Gray's, but that is what that is. I'll get that one done soon. Did I do the gray one? I have not done the gray one. What website is that? This is a app called Chaldea app, but it does have a web version. It's really, really good. I have a video talking about it, but I'm pretty sure, ironically enough, out of all the videos that I've ever made, I'm pretty sure that video is actually like the most out-of-date video because they have completely revamped Chaldea app and changed the download process and everything for it. But it's really nice. Basically, it allows you to have like, you know, servant plans and be able to put all of your units in here. Like you can see, I already have Waiseki Kenshin in here, yada yada yada. So it's like, basically, I know what I need for like the next 2 years. I guess I technically don't have the new collab units in yet, but you know, may as well wait until the collab's actually out for that. So. What kind of torture? I did watch episode 1 of 'Tis Time for Torture, Princess, and that is hilarious. I hope the subsequent episodes are better. Or as good. Was that 8-bit or what? Yeah, because I can zoom all the way in on any of this, right? So it's like I'm zoomed so far in that it's like it's super pixelated. It's the same thing with like any of these, right? Don't spoil me. I plan to watch it this weekend as a birthday treat to me. It's really good. It's a comfy, like, awesome anime, and that's all I'll say on that. You hit 110? Good. Keep at it. Like, chat. Remember, the two things y'all need to consider with regards to Barbados. 1, how much do you want to farm the lotto upcoming? And 2, how many apples do you want and have to use on Barbados? Okay? As long as you consider those 2 things, the apple situation and needing to farm in the future, you should be good. But basically, as usual with any type of major farming opportunity, set a goal for yourself, set out to reach that goal. Don't give a shit how many kills someone else does. Right, chat? Someone's gonna walk out of this thing with like 1,000 kills. Who cares? Okay? If you got the amount of materials you needed, good for you. That's really all that matters. A lot of greatly outweighs Barbie for me. Yeah, it's the same thing with me, basically. Some people already have 1,000 kills. I believe it. But I'm also going to say, remember, chat, people are going to fucking bot this shit. People, hilariously enough, people can bot the crap out of this, and they'll try to flex their numbers, but one, they already botted the last version of this raid with Barbados, so I don't give a shit how much people flex. And 2, at the end of the day, keep in mind that like they couldn't do that really apparently for the Koyanskaya raid, which I had a good chuckle about. Okitan OG, Okitan Saber, Shisho, Erish, Space Ishtar, Scotty, Zenobia. I mean, out of all of those, Buntori is the one that like you don't have a class for Grailed at that point. I guess it really boils down to how much you prefer like Erish over like Lartoria and Lalter. Because either one of them could be a decent option for you, but yeah, it just at the end of the day is going to boil down to that. 1,000 mats or 1,000 kills won't give me the amount of mats I need. Nice. But for God's sake, don't flex about it. Yeah, I've said this before. It's like, if you bot, I just legitimately don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear anything about your account. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, you are cheating. It is what it is. I don't want to hear about it. Like, because at the end of the day, it's like sitting there and being like, yo, guys, I got first place like 3 times in a row in Fortnite using my aimbot. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like, that required no skill. Congratulations. It required no effort on your part. Nothing. So it's like, aren't there bones in Tesla Fest? I believe so. I'd have to double check. I have not taken a hard look at the Tesla Fest mats yet. But chat, 'tis time for torture, and by torture I mean banner review. Also, chat, I've really got to eat more of this peach apricot cherry jam that I have here. It's fantastic. Just been sitting on my desk for like way too long. Sounds delicious. It absolutely is. I get some like club crackers and I just spread it on them. I want some. I know. I want some now too, but I've already eaten for the evening. Chat, where did we leave off on this? Did we actually... Rungo Miniad or Excalibur? Ooh, that's a difficult question. I like both of those items. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say this. I don't like at all what Nasu is doing with the lore behind either of those items at the moment. Twitch PB, thank you for the follow. He used to be really good on the lore of those items, but now with the recent Lost Belt, it feels like he's just twisted it. Just our DL campaign? No, we finished that. We did not start. I think you just got to this matter but didn't go over it. Can you blame me? Okay, so chat. So I've already covered Odysseus. I have covered Achilles, I'm pretty positive. I don't think I covered Astraea. Did I start out with the Case Files collab? Or did I skip her? No, like the core lore of Excalibur is consistent, some guy, but like he's done some stuff now with Lost Belt that he's gonna struggle to undo later on. Hold on, chat. You're about to get blasted here. Okay. I went over Astraea. Case Files was the beginning. Okay. I had to double check, and ironically enough, my computer. So my video folder on my computer is so big that it like refuses to load. Like, so even though I have the file open, I am literally watching as it like chugs along, trying to actually like load everything. And it is like causing the media player to not be able to actually parse the info. But it's friggin' hilarious because it's all just like the amount of recordings that I've done. Okay, we can get rid of that one. We can get rid of that one. We can get rid of that one. We can also get rid of that one. I don't know why there's two of that. We can get rid of that. You can get rid of that. I'm having to free up space in my drive because I just realized that I'm actually getting really full. Wow, my hair is like super short there. I'm not going to delete that one because I don't remember if I actually uploaded that one or not. That one may prove useful later. I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Nederland? Okay. That freed me up to like 15 gigs. Okay, we should be good for a recording session for tonight at least. I had to double check just because I was like, I really don't want to like hit cap in the middle of recording and then watch as it just ends the recording and I keep going and don't realize it. So anyways, chat. So we've done Estrella then. I don't think we've done anyone else here though. I think it's just those three that we've already done. And this is right here at the end of September. So we're doing good. We got a chance. Is Reigns worth getting if I already have every other support in the game minus Merlin? She's really decent as a neutral option, but I think the issue at play is that Oberon is just so strong even as a neutral option. So I think it really boils down to, like, again, maybe a bonding situation, whether or not you feel like you need another unit to use. I wouldn't necessarily recommend rolling for her just for that, but there is obviously the potential with her. I don't think she's a bad unit. I do think she's better at handling a single unit and their kit over like Waver, who's kind of better for the party, but it just kind of boils down to, you know, whether or not you feel like there's value in that. Make a file called video 2. No, chat, the issue is like my drive is actually getting full, and that's kind of part of the problem. Draw Monstacado. Oh, is this the Tenchi Muyo soundtrack? Let's go. Okay, so as we get to the last thing here in September, we now have the Road to 7 LB5 Part 1 campaign. This is going to be the Atlantis campaign here. And you guys can see we have banners basically for Super Orion, Odysseus, Achilles, Estrella, Chiron, Chiome, Hector, and Mandricardo. We have already covered Odysseus, Achilles, and Estrella in this video, or perhaps even in the prior video or something like that, depending on how these videos get divided up. So we're going to start off with Super Orion and then jump to Chiron, so please don't be upset if that happens. So, again, Super Orion is a limited unit. This is a relatively rare banner for him. He's really solid, even still to this day. I don't think anyone would ever say anything negative about Super Orion. I think his only issues really rely on card RNG and being able to sort of facilitate him popping off. If you're using him in a solo environment, that's extremely easy to do, but then the issue becomes his actual survivability, because he actually doesn't have that much in his kit to be able to do so. So at the end of the day, it really just kind of boils down to whether or not you think Super Orion is a unit that you need. There are other units that can do similar things to him, just being a really strong crit-based unit. But I do think Super Orion just has some of the just most raw firepower in the game in that sense. You can see he's got 12k attack. Again, just shy of 14k HP. He's got a triple buster deck, which is definitely something we like to see. He increases his own buster performance for 1 turn by 50%, and will further increase his damage against wild beast or demonic enemies for 1 turn by 50% as well. So a nice power mod there, covering 2 different niches. Because they're in the same effect, and because it says or, it means that it's not an and. So in a sense, you're not getting both of these at the same time. You were just getting up to a maximum of 50%. But I think the issue at play here is rather just more that this is a 1-turn duration. So it is very much that Super Orion becomes a very boom and bust type of servant. You're going to spend a couple turns setting him up to really pop off, and then you're going to pop everything and blow his load. So that just kind of is what that is, but certainly you can manage to sort of card lock him or get him in a solo environment and have it, you know, every single turn at that point. His second skill here is his actual hard survival skill. He gets a guts of 1 time over 3 turns, up to 3,000 HP, so it's not the worst. and then increasing his own attack for 3 turns by 20% with a 20 crit star bomb. Again, definitely nice for him to have that star bomb. He gets just some raw firepower there with the attack up and then the hard survivability. And again, his first skill was on a 5-turn cooldown. This one's on a 6-turn. His third one here is also going to be on a 5-turn. So you can see all of his cooldowns relatively low there to kind of help him get back to popping off again. His third skill here will increase his own critical star absorption for 3 turns by 500%. Thankfully, he is an archer, so he has one of the higher star absorptions in the game because of that. And you can see that he will grant himself a buff on attack, where basically for the next 3 attacks, he will increase his own critical damage for 1 turn whenever he uses his buster cards. This is usually what relies on what enables him to get just such insane crit numbers, because again, you can see the crit damage buff here is up to 100%. So really, really, really strong in the fact that this can be a stacked ability, and it's why he can get such crazy numbers. The issue at play here is the limitation of it only being for the first 3 attacks. So there is that. He's only going to have 3 buster cards. But again, maybe you're in a scenario where he's solo and he just has them every single turn. This just means that he's going to hit really hard 1 turn and then very quickly fall off again after that. So keep that in the back of your head, that is going to be kind of just how Super Orion works. He does get independent action EX for some 12% additional crit damage there. Again, he basically has the toxic status, which means he takes even more damage to poison. So usually you don't want to use him against poison-related enemies, but again, you can maybe manage to make it work, because NP here has Invincibility Pierce, a really, really nice effect. It is a support NP. This is also why you usually don't see Super Orion on damage lists, even though he is arguably the highest damage-dealing archer. He increases his own attack for 3 turns here. Again, this is the part that's going to scale with his NP level. So you can see it's 30 to 50, just like Castoria, interestingly enough. And then he will grant himself debuff immunity for 3 turns, which, as we talked about the poison situation there before, can't get poisoned if you're immune to it. So definitely a nice thing for him to have. And then he will gain 10 critical stars every turn for 3 turns. I can't stress enough how important this is if you just don't have a lot of stars in the comp, being able to kind of get that regular sort of influx of stars, because basically due to Super Orion having a triple buster deck and due to it being 1 hit on those cards, you are not going to generate a lot of stars with Super Orion. So you really, really need to get that NP in a lot of those situations just to have the consistent inflow. But again, there are other ways you can do it. You can pair him up with a unit like Merlin. You can maybe have a 20-30 in the party, or just maybe have a Mystic Code that can provide stars on the turn that you actually need it. Either one of those things are options. And then his overcharge effect will increase his own critical damage for 3 turns by an additional 100%. So again, you look at this in conjunction with that third skill, you can see Super Orion has some insane crit and basically some of the highest modifiers in the game thanks to that. So Super Orion does one thing, and he does it incredibly well. He punches you in the face really hard with his buster cards. Is Super Orion good? Still in the current year on JP? Yep. And I'm pretty sure that's why they just don't like giving him a ton of banners. Is he able to solo everything in the game? Nope. That's usually just due to his lack of overall survivability. He is very much a kill or be killed type of unit. You usually get, anywhere from 5 to 10 turns with him to really have him pop off. But beyond that, you're going to have a hard time keeping him alive in a solo environment. But it will depend on what you're facing. Still, you can support him and try to keep him up, but keep in mind, if you're using other units alongside him, that is other units whose cards you may be getting in place of Super Orion's, and thus you have to consider the impact that that might have on his ability to actually pop off on the right turn. It might result in you having to hold his skills for the right time, but again, he is a very, very powerful unit if you manage to use him correctly. Again, skipping Odysseus, Achilles, and Astraea here, jumping straight to Chiron, another, ironically enough, crit-centric unit. You'll see this as we go through the kit, but again, he has 9k attack. This is decent for a 4-star. He's got 12k HP, decent for a 4-star. He's got double quick, double arts deck here. Again, his hit counts are all very solid. He ends up having a self-hard evasion for 1 turn, and then an increase to his defense further for 3 turns. His second skill here increases the party's crit damage for 3 turns by 50%. And this is going to be a big reason why I think a lot of people will use him, is he's pretty decent at taking out an enemy, but also facilitating the party to be able to crit down waves. You can see he also has a star bomb here of 15. It's nothing crazy like the 30 star bombs that we've seen of late, but it is still a strong ability. He will damage himself, but it won't kill him, so there's that. And then his third skill here basically is a targetable tricolor buff of 30% to all 3 card types for 3 turns. So this can be very strong in a support capacity. Like I said, you can use him to handle a single enemy wave, and then maybe have him set somebody else up, maybe have the party crit something down, you name it. But in that regard, I don't think Chiron is the most meta. He doesn't have charge or anything like that, but he does hit a lot harder now that he's had his NP interlude. And to show you that, again, you can see he's gotten the upgrade, and it removes one enemy's defense buffs activating before damage. That is already really solid because it means you're not going to stop Chiron from hitting you. It's going to deal damage to them, and then now, thanks to the NP interlude, it's going to deal super effective damage to Earth attribute enemies. Overcharge is sort of that bland old reduce their critical attack chance for 3 turns by 20%, but still don't underestimate this effect. This can be pretty decent at helping keep the party alive at certain points. It just depends on whether or not you're actually in that point to be able to do so. So, again, Chiron, still a pretty decent unit after all these years, but certainly with 90++ content and a more focus on just, insane charge capability, he's definitely fallen off a little bit. Probably not worth a devoted role for, but still an interesting and usable unit at this point. Next up here, we have Chom, and Chom is the epitome of a unit that's had a really good turnaround story. She is a 4-star single target arts assassin. Again, you can see here, she only has 8.5k attack. That's one of the issues with Chom. She's not going to card very hard most of the time. She has double quick, double arts in terms of her deck. Her hit counts are, again, mostly okay here. You've got the arts card and the extra attack are 1 under average, but given the fact that she's got 0.8 in the NP gain department, I think that's well worthy of being the case. Her first skill here has had its upgrade, and it basically ends up adding, in addition to the chance to seal one enemy's NP for 1 turn, a demonic niche of 30% here for 3 turns, and then also the increase to her own damage against enemies with curse status for 3 turns by 20%. I don't really like the fact that it's a 20% power mod, but granted, you can pretty much secure this one all the time, so this is pretty consistent. As again, Chom is going to have quite the ability to curse, so just having the ability to have a power mod against it, I think, is just naturally strong. Her second skill here is basically going to increase her own arts performance by up to 30%. It's also going to have a debuff on attack where she will inflict curse. So you're going to want to try to get a lot of use out of this. You're going to want to try to use her cards whenever you have the opportunity, just to be able to curse, just to be able to set up the first skill for being able to deal more damage. The third skill here grants herself evasion for 1 turn and charges her gauge by up to 30%. It's going to make you want to lore that skill, and I don't blame you. But again, definitely nice that she got the charge skill there, and pretty much has been her saving grace at this point throughout all these years. Because for a long time, a lot of our single target assassins did not have charge, so Chom having it usually was a leg up for her. Her Noble Phantasm has had its NP interlude, and you can see it deals damage to 1 enemy, seals their skills for 1 turn, so you got to be careful about them hitting you back then after that, and then now inflicts evil curse status for 3 turns that increases the curse damage to them by 200%. So a really, really strong, capable skill, and this is going to allow her, in combination with that power mod, of just really like it being incentivized to stack curses, to get more damage, both from the curse itself and from the power mod that she has. And then to cap it all off, she'll reduce their critical attack chance for 3 turns. So I do find that Chom is a lot more usable now than she used to be. Those upgrades really do help her out quite a bit. Definitely give her a shot if you guys haven't in a long time. Is she worth maybe the devoted role? No, it's probably still somewhere in that same realm as like Chiron, where you can manage to use her. But I think for a lot of people, unless you've got a lot of NP levels or you've managed to invest a lot in her, I think you'll notice that she's still kind of hitting a little bit lower than most people would expect. but she is actually pretty good for challenge content because of her whole kit. So I don't think that's the end of the world. And certainly having the 30% charge nowadays, that can set you up to at least kill a single enemy wave should you need to. So Chom is still definitely a very serviceable unit. Next up here, we have Hector. We haven't managed to cover him, but Hector to me is in a little bit of a weird spot. He's pretty much been completely supplanted at this point by Roma, aka Romulus 3-star. Romulus 3-star has gotten a lot of love over the years, and it's really paid off for him. Hector has simply fallen by the wayside in comparison. But Hector is the epitome of, again, you hear me saying this term a lot, a serviceable unit. So logically, a lot of you guys should have him just due to the fact that he is an FP unit. But again, you can see he's got a 1.08 NP gain rate here. He's got double quick, double buster comparatively with his buster NP. His NP has had its NP interlude. You can see that he ignores defense buffs to all enemies and then basically reduces their defense after the fact. So you can use Hector as sort of a setup man, as a NP in a sequence of NPs to set someone else up. Also because of the way his kit works. His first skill here is his military tactics skill, and it got its upgrade already to increase the party's NP damage for 3 turns by 20%. So really nice for him to be able to pop off a little bit harder, but also to set up somebody else to be able to pop off. He's also going to reduce the party's damage taken for 2 attacks, 3 turns with just a small damage cut there. The second skill here will be a chance to reduce one enemy's NP gauge for 1 turn and a chance to stun them for 1 turn. This skill needs an upgrade, and it needs to basically be his form of vampirism where it actually provides him charge. The drain chance also needs to go to 100%. This is sad and pathetic because it can still fail, and there's nothing worse than lowering a skill and finding out it can still fail. So again, at the end of the day, I think this is really where Hector is lacking at this point. You have a unit like Romulus that already has Imperial Privilege, already has charge, and just hits like a ton of bricks, has good survivability. So I think giving Hector something a little bit more other than just party buffer would be decent for him. So converting this into like a 30% charge skill, I think would really help turn things around. Again, he does have the stun chance for 1 turn as well here, but it is what it is. His third skill here is just your standard disengage. It's going to cleanse his own debuffs and recover his HP. So just solid skill altogether. Again, you can see his kit is not bad. He doesn't really have that hard survival. That is going to be his issue. But for just taking out a wave and buffing someone else, he's always going to have that usefulness. And that's where, again, he is the epitome of serviceable. Last on this banner, we have Mandricardo. Mandricardo is your best friend. Mandricardo is a single target arts writer. He's definitely improved some, but I think he still is somewhat clunky to use. He's actually a very popular character, just due to people really liking the way that his character was kind of written. Again, he's got double quick, double arts deck here, which I think is good for him. He really wants that NP gain when possible. And you can see his first skill here increases his own defense for 3 turns and the party's attack for 3 turns by 30% and 20% respectively. The second skill here did get its upgrade. This used to be the skill where he just, again, would very quickly sacrifice himself. You can see he can only use it when he's at 50% HP or less. There's no good way to get him at less than 50% HP other than like chin gonging him. So it usually resulted in him trying to like taunt and get hit in order to gain the potential capability here. But this does mean that if you can get him into a sacrificial mode, that you're going to allow him to pop off, hit hard, and then die, kind of rotating the party and bringing someone else in. That's always been the usefulness of Mandricardo. I wish they would make that a little bit easier to do a la Arash, but sadly, to this point in time, they have not. Again, you can see it's going to increase his own attack for 1 attack for 1 turn. So basically the next attack that he does by 50%. It's also going to increase his critical damage for 1 attack, 1 turn by 100%. So if that attack is a crit, it will crit very hard. And then basically gives him a debuff on attack for the duration of the turn that allows him to remove defensive buffs from one enemy whenever he attacks. And then he has a 500% chance to sacrifice himself when attacking for 1 turn, which is treated as a buff. So in other words, you can't get rid of it. This got upgraded to basically increase his own attack for 1 turn and increase his own crit damage for 1 turn, so that's the entire duration of the turn. And basically has a 500% chance to inflict a delayed debuff 1 time for 1 turn to oneself, treated as a buff, which is basically that he will now sacrifice himself at the end of the turn rather than immediately upon the attack. So, a quality of life upgrade for him. It just means that he kind of has this glass cannon, last ditch, sort of last stand type skill where he's just going to go in there, he's going to hit really hard and go out in a blaze of glory. But instead of it happening the second he does the hit, it will now happen at the end of his turn after he's done all of his hits. I think that's a lot better for him, and I do think that helps out, especially with sort of doing an NP and then following it up with damage after the fact. His third skill here increases his own quicken arts performance for 3 turns by only 20%. And then again, right here, as I mentioned before, he has a taunt for 1 turn. So this is usually how people will try to get Mandricardo to be a little bit lower in the health department. You can see his Noble Phantasm hasn't had its upgrade. It's a single hit 4-hit single target arts NP. It's going to deal damage to 1 enemy and then have a 500% chance to reduce his own attack for 10% for 1 turn. I think for a lot of people are going to try to use this with his brink shot capability, so the demerit's not that big of a deal, but certainly if he's going to stay alive for you, then yes, having some way of getting rid of a 10% attack down would be nice. His overcharge effect will increase his own quick arts and buster performance for 1 turn by 20%, so again, additional carding after the NP, definitely a nice thing to have. I do think Mandricardo is a really interesting unit. I think he does have some niche challenge applications. I would like to see him be a little bit more use on demand type unit, with his death proc being able to be triggered as we desire. But other than that, I think he's, at least improved, and I think he's still a somewhat nichely useful unit. Again, you guys can see the banner pacing here. You've got 3 days of Super Orion, 3 days of Odysseus, and then 4 days, ironically enough, of Achilles. You can see that Hector and Mandricardo are on right up all banners, but that otherwise the 4 stars get paired up alongside. And then last thing to consider for the Road to 7 campaign here is the fact that you can get the Argonaut CE on rate up. This CE is a story-locked CE. You only get given a single copy of it after you finish the actual the actual Lost Belt there. So everybody should have 1 copy, but if you're trying to be a completionist and you want to MLB it, this would be probably the best time to roll in order to get that, because otherwise you're going to have to go fishing in the story banner in order to see if you can kind of get 1 out of it. So that is going to be September in a nutshell. And then now we get to move on into October. You can see right here, we are now in the 10th month, and here is the 9th advanced quest. So really keeping pace there. And now we get to go into basically part 2, where the devs really said, hey, you know what? We absolutely do need to catch back up here. We really need to make sure that we are getting this done before LB7 actually comes out. So this is going to be your part 2 of Road to 7. This is going to be the Olympus variant of LB5's Road to 7 campaign. Again, you can see going to be some nice units here. Basically, this is going to be the return of Romulus, Dioscuri, Europa, and Kanis. Definitely got some interesting things to say about these units, so let's go ahead and dive right in. I think Romulus is a very, very solid unit. I think he would actually probably be one of the more hyped Lancers if Melisande didn't exist right now. That is to say, if you didn't have the craziness of Melisande combined with Black Grail and Oberon, that you would actually see Romulus 5-star version here being hyped to all hell and back, and that a lot of people would have a lot more favorable opinion of him. I don't think people have, in general, a bad opinion of Romulus. If they do, they're probably missing the mark, because, again, he is a really good one. Just that he's not super hyped anymore, and you don't really hear too many people talk about him. Again, I think with Romulus, he just has a kit that is designed to be strong in both challenge and farm content, and you will see that as we go through. Got 12k attack, only 13k HP, a 0.59 NP gain rate. Again, you can see he's got Quicken Arts up of basically only 3 of his cards, and that's because he is a Buster unit, so you're going to want that double Buster in order to form a triple Buster Brave Chain with his NP. His hit counts, though, are all average or better. His first skill here increases the party's attack for 3 turns by 20%, party critical damage for 3 turns by 20%, and then the critical damage of Roman allies by 30%. He also has a 500% chance to inflict the Roman trait debuff for 5 turns to all enemies. Definitely an interesting thing that you want to pay attention to. But again, he himself is Roman, so he's going to gain the benefit of basically all the buffs here. And then you can see his second skill is going to grant himself invincibility for 2 attacks over 3 turns. It's also going to charge his NP gauge by 30% and gain him 10 crit stars. Definitely nice. Hard survival right there, and charge. Exactly what I like to see. His third skill here increases his own bush performance for 3 turns by 30%, and his star absorption for 1 turn by 500. I would probably prefer the star absorption to be higher because he is only a Lancer, and as far as Lancers go, he's not got the most robust star absorption. So to me, this could actually end up being improved, but it is what it is. He will grant himself a debuff on attack, though, for 3 turns that will inflict the Roman trait debuff for 5 turns to an enemy when critical attacking. So if you can manage to land crits, that's more stacks of his Roman debuff. Thing to keep in mind here is if you look at the first skill, he does have it on a 5-turn cooldown. This means you can get back to this skill on turns 1 and 2 in a double coin sky is set up. His second skill here is his NP charge skill. This means you're going to pop it on turns 1 and 3, which is ideal for a double coin Skya Oberon setup as he will kind of function best in. And then his third skill here is Buster Up for 3 turns, basically, and then the Roman trait whenever he crits. Essentially, all on a 5-turn cooldown, allowing him to pop this as well on turns 1 and 2. So he gets a lot of really quick ramp ability in his kit. It means you're going to be able to double up on these skills, get a lot of steroids at play. That's what's going to make Roma hit hard for you, regardless of what it is that you're facing. And certainly, most of the things that you will face will be Roman, because he will make it so. So again, as you can see here, his Noble Phantasm is a 5-hit AoE. It deals damage to all enemies and then deals extra damage per stack of the Roman trait debuff on them to them. So again, he's going to have scaling damage based off the number of stacks. This is why I say he's great in a farm or a challenge scenario. He can already hit hard in a farm. You can make him 3-turn with a double coin Sky Oberon setup. But then if you put him in a challenge environment, he's going to have the capability of getting even more Roman stacks with all the carding he'll be doing. So definitely an interesting thing. Keep in mind, too, you can pre-card an NP to try and get stacks to try and increase damage. Obviously, no one wants to have to card at all if they don't have to, but at the same time, it just may be necessary, especially at lower NP levels, especially at different times, for him to try and use that strategy. So I highly implore you to keep an eye out for it. This will inflict the Roman trait debuff for 5 turns to them and grant the party the Roman trait buff for 5 turns, meaning that, yet again, his first skill and the fact that it increases the critical damage of all allies will basically apply to everybody, not just the Roman ones, as everybody will be Roman after he uses his MP the first time. His overcharge effect is a very interesting one as well, as it increases the party's attack for 3 turns by 10%. This is stackable. This does mean in a loop, he's going to get stronger and stronger. So again, highly recommend Romulus if you have no other good options for AoE Lancer and you just maybe aren't keen on Melisande for whatever reason. He is still one of the hardest hitting AoE Lancers in the game and really got a solid kit no matter how you look at it. We have already talked about Dioscuri. We have already talked about Europa. I believe we have already talked about Kanis. No, actually, I don't think we did, because I don't think Kanis was in the Valentine's Day review for that. Or if she was, I didn't end up touching her. So, Kanis is a 4-star story-locked unit. That's going to be your big consideration with her. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you actually, try to get her if you want her. Otherwise, you're not going to have good opportunities necessarily, because rolling the story banner is something that no one wants to have to do. So, at the end of the day, I recommend trying to get Kanis if you want her here, potentially, because this is a good opportunity, given who she manages to be on rate up alongside, be it Romulus there. Still, that being said, they are both AoE Lancers, and one could preclude the other in that sense, so there is that to consider. But this is sort of our issue at this point. Our AoE Lancers don't have a whole lot to stand out against each other in the face of their kits, and I think that's something that really desperately needs to get addressed by the devs, because again, having a reason to use Kanis over other Lancers is going to be somewhat difficult. That being said, Kanis does have good, solid attack power. She suffers in the HP department in order to sort of deal with that. But again, she definitely has some very nice art and a pretty good NP gain rate. But she's going to need that good NP gain rate since she has a double buster, double quick deck. Again, the hit counts here are all average, so nothing too bad there. Her first skill is a monstrous attack buff for 2 turns of 40%. I wish this were a 3-turn duration, but probably the devs would find that to be a little bit too strong. Her second skill here has had its upgrade, and thank God it has, because basically it granted her 20% charge. She basically already has a grant buff on attack buff that will increase her normal attack for 1 turn when she attacks. So pre-carding her NP is always the better solution for her in terms of damage. And then it will also inflict attack down by 10% for every turn to any enemy when normal attacking. So she is wildly swinging the damage in your favor. That is to say, you deal more damage, the enemy deals less damage. And that is absolutely great for sort of winning a fight over time. She will gain critical stars every single turn for 3 turns, up to 15. This is a nice addition. It really helps her out. But admittedly, Buster usually doesn't need that many stars, so it is what it is. But again, the flat 20% charge here does mean that with a double Oberon setup, you can 3-turn with Kanis. Obviously, it'd be more ideal if this were a 30% buff, but I think they just looked at Jalter and what they gave her, and they tried to achieve somewhat parity there. Her third skill here ends up being the ability to reduce her own damage taken for 3 attacks, 3 turns, up to 3,000. Definitely a stronger damage cut. But it's also paired with her self-guts of 1 time for 3 turns by 3,000%. So you got a little bit of an issue there where you may end up, absorbing so much that you actually manage to outlive the guts' duration. Then it falls off, and then you die on the next turn due to the hits. So definitely not the best of situations there, but it is what it is, and that can't be helped at this point unless the devs choose to buff it. Her NP basically has not had its interlude. That's maybe one of the good things that she has going for her in the long term. It's a 3-hit AoE NP. It increases her own critical damage by 50% for 3 turns, activating first, kind of even further pushing you down that crit and carding path with her. She'll deal damage to all enemies, and then her overcharge effect is that she increases her own NP damage for 3 turns, activating first by 10%. Does mean that this is stackable, and again, with Oberon and his third skill, it means that you're going to get a lot of amplified power out of this. But remember, you're going to be having to use a double Oberon setup, so probably using a better CE is pretty much out of the question. You'll be looking at utilizing K-Scope on Kanis because of this. Though certainly that's only if you want to 3-turn with her. If you try to use her in some sort of mixed setup, you could probably get a little bit further in that regard. But still, I do find Kanis to be a rather interesting and somewhat rare unit, so again, up to you to determine if you want to roll there. You can see for banner purposes, you've got 4-day banners basically with Europa and Kanis, and then Romulus and Kanis, so again, you can kind of mix and match there if you so choose, or perhaps even Dioscuri with Kanis, just depending on what you're after. Definitely a better situation for her, as one of the things that we have criticized the pity system for before as we move forward into JP's times is that it is somewhat difficult to get your 4 stars, especially when they don't get solo rate ups. So the fact that Kanis is a somewhat rare unit, getting a solo rate up here, definitely good for people that want more copies of her. And you have 3 choices by which to pair with her. The rate up CE, however, for this is going to end up being the same version as we talked about for Atlantis. This is going to be the CE that you get upon completion of Olympus. You get 1 copy. If you like to be a completionist person, you can roll for more here while it's on rate up to try and get MLB. Otherwise, you're going to go fishing in the story banner, and no one wants to have to do that. The rate up CE, however, for this is going to be the same version as we talked about for Atlantis. This is going to be the CE that you get upon completion of Olympus. You get 1 copy. If you like to be a completionist person, you can roll for more here while it's on rate up to try and get MLB. Otherwise, you're going to go fishing in the story banner, and no one wants to have to do that. So next up, we have the Eliza event. This is a very, very interesting event in that regard. Again, I'm not going to spend too long talking about the welfares, as I'll probably end up covering them in a different video. But essentially, Eliza is a pretty decent option for you guys. You can see that she is an AoE Buster Pretender. A lot of you guys will already have Oberon, and you'll think that as a result that you don't need anyone else, but Eliza in certain circumstances can out-damage him, and it just gives you a non-supporty unit in order to use, so having her for free, definitely a nice thing, though admittedly she could be stronger in some ways. Talking about the actual updates here, you guys can see this is where Qin Liang Yu and basically Mr. Fister, aka Yan King, get his upgrade. So again, interesting to say the least, but this is going to end up being sort of the banner for Huan Joe. So Huan Joe is going to be a particularly interesting one in my opinion, because she's going to be coming out at this point basically prior to Ilya Fest. It's going to be the start of 2 AoE SSR assassins at a point at which, prior to this, we actually had no quick AoE SSR assassins. And I always found that really weird, that the class that is known for its card type out of any of them has long been quick with assassin. Yes, over the years, we've definitely gotten other non-quick assassins, but it's kind of wild to me that assassin was known for that card type, and yet you didn't have an SSR AoE of that card type prior to this point. So it is what it is, but again, I do think Huan Joe can be a pretty interesting unit in that regard. She was somewhat criticized when she came out, as people were pointing out that she was stale, that she was boring, that she just had a very simple sort of mass-produced kit. I don't think that's true. I think that that's usually people just kind of letting their bias show through and hating on Quick because they don't want to have to roll the units for it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I'm going to say that her performance is still pretty good. So as you can see, she's only got a 0.53 NP gain rate. She's only got 11k attack, but still nothing too bad there. She's got double quick, double buster, again, lending us in that Summer Scotty sort of setup here. And the hit counts are all actually really good here, especially on the quick and arts cards there at 4 each. Her first skill here is a quick and buster up of 3 turns, basically of 30% each there. And then essentially she will increase her own critical star gen rate whenever she attacks with a quick card, and she will increase her own critical damage rate whenever she attacks with a buster card, incentivizing you to use both. I'm not the biggest fan of these types of skills, mostly because it uses a lot of the itemization on it, but at the end of the day, I'm okay with this. I don't think it's a bad effect in the slightest, just that it feels to me that they've kind of done this trope now a couple of times. And I do think that's where some of those criticisms come from. Her second skill here is Ignore Invincibility for 3 turns. That's definitely nice. We don't have a whole ton of AoE assassins doing that sort of thing. She's also going to increase her own attack for 3 turns by 30% and increase her own critical star absorption by 500%. Again, with that in mind, you guys can see she is only an assassin, so at 98 there, I do think, again, this could be a better percentile, but it's not the end of the world by any means. Her third skill here is her hard survival skill. She gets 2 attacks, 3 turns, an increase to her own buff removal resistance by 100% potentially, and then a increase to her own NP gauge of 30% there. So the 30% charge is really nice. I've talked to you guys about buff removal resistance before. It's a really nice thing to have, but I'm not wild about a unit that only buffs themselves with it, because it usually just means that that unit doesn't get stripped, everyone else does, and then everyone else around dies. So at the end of the day, it's nice that she has it, but I certainly prefer a unit to have AoE buff removal resistance rather than just on themselves. Beyond this, you can see she has an 8-hit AoE NP. That's certainly going to help out with the NP gain here. It's going to deal damage to all enemies, then deal super effective damage to enemies with an evil alignment. And kind of similar to Bradamante, she's going to have a 40% chance to stun all of those enemies. So certainly pretty nice here. I do think alignments are a little less useful compared to traits, but at the end of the day, it's definitely a pretty wide open a pretty wide open alignment there with evil. So I think it's still a good niche for her to have. She's going to increase her own quick performance for 1 turn, activating first by 20%. Unfortunately, it's not 3 turns, so you don't get that stacking buff. I think that would have actually been really nice for her, but still, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are probably just either going to roll because they like the design of the unit. They basically end up liking, how she looks, and maybe they just need a powerful AoE assassin. Really, that's going to be the determining factor. She is a quick loopable option. So at the end of the day, I like Huan Joe. She's not going to be the best unit ever in the game, but I don't think she's a bad unit, and I don't think she deserved the rap that she got when she first came out. Wang Fei Hu is the next one up here. He is a permanent unit. He is single target Buster Rider. Again, his attack stat is actually quite low considering, so I'm not I'm going to say this. It's not a bad attack stat, but it's not in that 9k range that we like to see our 4 stars in to consider them to be high. He's got 12k HP, though, to somewhat offset that. And he's got double arts, double buster deck here, which, again, as you can see as you scroll down, that is basically his first skill here. So he increases the party's arts and buster performance for 3 turns by 20% each, and then he will grant himself the Prince Wu Chang, who guards the kingdom status for 3 turns, which basically just means that it will change his own chaotic alignment to lawful alignment. So hilariously enough, this is the erasure of his chaotic and changing it to lawful, rather than just adding a lawful alignment that wasn't already there. Just keep that in the back of your head as to how this is going to work for this unit. His second skill here increases his own NP gauge for 3 turns by 20%, self-gut status of 1 time for 3 turns by 3,000, and if he himself is lawful because he has used his first skill here, this will then increase his own critical damage by 50%. If he is chaotic alignment because he hasn't used his first skill, then that's going to increase his NP gen rate for 3 turns by 50%. I'm going to flat out tell you that you probably will prefer the crit damage, but if you take him into a carding scenario, who knows, you may want that NP gain to get back to another NP. So I'm going to tell you you're probably safer to go ahead and use this first skill rather than not, but it may depend on the circumstances. His third skill here increases his own attack for 3 turns by 30%, increases his own crit damage by 30% for 3 turns, and then just gives him stars every single turn up to 10. Thankfully, he is a rider, so his star absorption is extremely high. Definitely good for him in that regard, as it'll make it easy for him to soak those stars back to himself. From here, you can see he does have, again, a 5-hit single target NP that deals damage to 1 enemy, and then an overcharge effect that is a tricolor buff for 3 turns of 10%. So he will keep stacking this the more you can get him to NP, but the big thing you guys got to pay attention to is the fact that he basically only has charge per turn rather than charge on command. This does allow him to be able to 3-turn, but it's going to be a 3-turn with a double Oberon type of setup, and that's assuming you need to 3-turn with a single target rider. So it just ends up being what it is. I don't think he's a bad unit, but due to the fact that he's permanent, I think a lot of people probably aren't going to try too hard, and the real breadwinner here is going to be Huan Joe. The second campaign here is going to end up being Jack de Molay and basically the return of Tai Gong Wang yet again. You can see he's already had a ton of banners. In fact, while everybody was harping on how many banners that Morgan Le Fay had, Tai Gong Wang actually had more banners faster than she did. This is definitely an interesting thing to point out at this point. I believe we have already covered Jack de Molay. Let me pause it right there because I got to actually think about this. Did we already cover her? Because I know we've covered him, we've covered her. I think we covered Hesh and Lobo already as well. I think so, because she was on the Annie. Yeah, let me see. 35 million download campaign. Okay. Yeah, like chat, you can see it's getting hard for me to keep track of who I've already covered because of how many banners there are. That's the difference between this year and last year. Like I said, historically in the past in FGO, me being a content creator for the game, me covering all of this, I used to have the banners memorized. I stopped doing it 2 years ago when JP started going into this. You couldn't keep them memorized. They just shotgunned out too many too fast. Only sitting EX. Did I already cover Shikibu as well? I know I did say. Everyone besides Yaku. Okay. Okay, it's the same C's as well, so I can cover that afterwards. So, in fact, after consulting with chat here, we have already covered all of these units before, except for one. And that one unit is Mr. Yagyu, aka Sitting EX, as we like to call him. Munenori is a pretty strong unit. I think when he first came out, he kind of burst onto the scene as just this almost like better, more survivable, more challenge-oriented version of Lancelot. But I think over time that has kind of shifted back in Lancelot's favor. One, due to the fact that Lancelot has had a nice upgrade, and two, due to the fact that I think Munenori's biggest issue is his one-turn durations on skills. We're kind of beginning to see as that's really holding units back in an era where like everything nowadays seems to have 3-turn effects. It doesn't mean he's a bad unit. It just means he's very boom and bust, very much a use it and then lose it until you get it back type of unit, rather than having multiple turn durations to kind of work things out. So you can see here he's got 9999999. In fact, I think if you were to just maybe cover up the one right here, you could in fact say that this is a very nice sequence of numbers. But again, definitely a strong attack stat for him there. And you can see that he manages to have slightly anemic HP because of it. It's not too bad for a 4-star, but it's not too good either. He's got man attribute here and 0.8 NP charge attack. He is a single target arts saber, and as a result, he gets the 2 arts cards. I certainly wish he had 3 instead, but that'd probably be too much since he's got the 0.8 one, and that is why he's only got 2 hit arts there. He does get a 4-hit quick, but otherwise his 2 buster cards there are only 1 hit. So his first skill here increases his arts up by 50% for 1 turn. So again, the single turn duration there coming there to bite him. He gets critical star absorption of his arts cards for that turn by 500. Again, Saber's not the worst, but it's also not the best. So sitting here at 100, this could certainly stand to be a little bit higher. But at the end of the day, I think it's still going to be more about actually getting the stars onto the arts cards that are going to be the issue. He increases his own debuff resistance by 100% for that duration of that turn, so that at least helps him out in a challenge environment. It's going to make it so that things can't basically debuff him and debilitate him as much. But due to the 1-turn duration, odds are you're going to end up utilizing this for the steroid when you need it, rather than trying to prevent debuff. So it'll just have to be a sort of, hey, we also managed to prevent a debuff in the process type of use. The second skill here is the one that's had its upgrade. Basically, it started out as an evasion for 1 turn and increasing his own attack for 1 turn by 20%. And then it gets upgraded to basically increasing his own crit damage for 1 turn by 100%. Definitely pushed him more in the crit department. Lancelot's someone that, to me, can manufacture the crits a lot easier and kind of keep going with it. So I still, to this day, while this is a very strong buff for him, I think this is still a weird buff for him. I would have actually liked instead if they came back around and said the attack up was 3 turns and maybe 30%. I think that alone would have just really helped out his usability. But again, can't really argue with 100% crit damage, so it is what it is. Third skill here reduces one enemy's attack for 1 turn by 50% and increases his own NP gen rate by 50%, so definitely a nice effect there. You're really going to want to make sure that you're popping this in the same turn as the arts up, trying to maybe loop, maybe crit, get back to another NP, because that's really all Munenori is going to have. Yagyu basically does not have a charge skill, and so getting to the NP is going to be highly card dependent. He's got a 4-hit single target NP that deals damage to one enemy and reduces their attack for 3 turns. I could see Yagyu into the future getting an NP interlude. At this point, I think it's okay if he does, but there are certainly certain units out there that probably need an upgrade if he does as well, given the upward pressure that he would manage to end up putting on some of the 5 stars. So at the end of the day, I do think Yagyu's still somewhat serviceable, but I do think he's beginning to fall behind the times. Probably to me, not really worth going after unless you just really want that collection copy or that, again, just the fact that he's not going to get a lot of easy banners there. But at the end of the day, you can see the way this banner is scheduled. He is going to basically be paired with, say, Shonagon, so maybe that might be another mitigating factor for you. If you like, say, trying to get him there and getting coins for him as well, not too bad. But otherwise, that may also be another reason not to roll, just depending on how you feel about Say. So again, definitely an interesting banner for him there. You can see the actual way they handled the raid ups here, and these craft essences here are the same as the craft essences from the first banner. Honestly, the NP gen, NP damage, and crit damage here would not be a bad CE if this one was all attack, but sadly it's not, so really nothing too much to talk about for the actual Halloween event. And that's going to cover that one. We had the 2 million followers commemoration. Nothing really going on here other than more courts, which is always nice. And then we go into the main interlude for Imaginary Scramble. I'm really happy to see this one finally get a main interlude. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of people are going to groan because you're going to remember the depth charges and kind of how long it took you to clear it. Good news for the main interlude for this. They actually made it a lot faster. You can skip the animations for some of that, and there's basically no sort of actual currency that you have to expend. So it's more just a button press simulator of just going in there and getting like the weird sort of like ADHD appeasal of being able to like tick off all of the boxes there. So definitely interesting in that regard. Again, you can see it's just going to be the return of this. If you've already managed to pay for it at some point, it wouldn't cost you. So again, now it's free here. And basically, as long as you've cleared Yuga Kestra, which is LB4. If you haven't, then it'll probably cost you. But once you do clear it, it won't cost you. And you can see this is going to unlock interludes as well for Van Gogh. It's going to be a thing. I haven't really talked about it too much this year, but essentially, you'll start to see as interludes for units become available, even if you don't own the unit. That's going to be actually really nice. You're going to want to make sure you do all of them when you get the opportunity, because that will enable you to complete more milestones. And should you ever eventually acquire the unit, it will already be done for you, meaning you'll have already done their story. You will have already potentially upgraded them if it is an upgrade. So definitely a nice thing to do, as you're just going to get easy rewards and easy milestone progress. Again, there's going to be some quests for that. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but you can see this will be the return of the Nemo banner. I know we didn't cover Van Gogh. I think Nemo we covered on Chaldea Boys. But I don't think either of these other two got covered. Like either of the 4 stars. Okay. Will I roll on the JP Samurai Remnant banner? Probably not. Just because I don't actually have the currency to do so. And I just, spent a decent amount on JP trying to get in P5 of the Saber there. Unfortunately for Nemo, we have already covered him back in the Chaldea Boys banner, so we're not too concerned about him. But everybody else here is fair game, so we get to talk about Van Gogh now. Van Gogh's a really interesting unit. I think Certainly, some people undervalue Van Gogh, and I'm also going to say that I think some people, in a weird way at this point, overvalue Van Gogh. I've kind of seen her run the gambit in terms of opinions where she's just a very interesting unit, and people are very opinionated on her. That being said, let's go through her kit right now real quick. So again, she's got 11k attack, but a whopping 15k HP for being very thick there. 0.76 NP gain rate, and a triple quick setup here in terms of her cards. The hit counts are all average or above in the case of the Buster and Quick cards, so definitely nice. And you can see her first skill here grants herself Gut status for 1 time over 5 turns. And then 3 stacks of Curse to herself for 10 turns. However, the good news is it will charge her own NP gauge per curse stack. This is actually really nice. If you manage to have more than the 3 curse stacks on her, you could potentially get even more charge. So it is 10% per stack, but there is some interesting stuff you can do with that. And then basically, if I didn't already denote it, 3000 HP on the guts, not bad either. Her second skill here has a 150% chance to reduce one enemy's defense for 3 turns. Sorry, reduce all enemies' defense for 3 turns by 20%. Thing to keep in mind with 150% is that it is not 500%. This means it does have a chance of being resisted. It does have a chance of failure as a result. Though at 150%, it is highly unlikely that it will, as most units will not have enough resistance to really counteract that. She will reduce their quick resistance by 20% for 3 turns, which is really nice given her quick deck. Grants the party evasion for 1 attack over 3 turns, kind of like, again, that Harp of Healing type skill. Recover the party's HP by 300 every turn for 5 turns, which, if you will remember, the curse that she deals to herself every single turn is basically 300. So healing the party by 300 every turn for 5 turns means you're at least offsetting that somewhat. And then has a 500% chance to inflict curse for 100 damage for 10 turns to the party. So remember what I said about offsetting it? Yeah, it's only partially. It's not completely now. And that's kind of the issue that you run into. Also, the fact that she did debuff the entire party right there is something you've got to consider. But it's not as it seems at this point. The third skill here will increase one ally's attack for 3 turns. Increase their critical star absorption for 3 turns. So again, 30 and 100% there. And then grants herself a buff on attack activate buff for 3 turns that removes her own latest curse debuff when attacking with quick cards. So she can at least cleanse her own curse stacks. The issue at play with this is that you probably want the curse stacks for charge, but certainly in a knockdown, drag out environment in the middle of a challenge quest, you do need to be at least concerned with her ability to keep going. So that may be, better than getting the charge. In other words, not dying is going to be better than getting charge, quickly or temporarily, but it just may, depend on whether or not that charge gets you to an NP or something like that. If it is successfully removed, the debuff will increase her own attack by 10% for 3 turns, so there is an upside to removing the curses. Also, she will absorb all enemies' curses, so any cursing that she's done to them, as well as the entire party's curses to herself. So she soaks everyone, the party and the enemies, all their curses to herself. So even though she cursed the party with the second skill, with the third skill she has the ability to soak it, and then with the first skill here you have the ability to charge based off of it. So you do have that capability to kind of handle that and basically be able to convert it. So definitely an interesting thing, and then maybe cleanse it after the fact if you're worried about having too much. You can see she also has a unique passive that her HP will never fall below 1 whenever she takes curse damage, meaning she cannot die from just the curse damage, but she can die from every other source. So definitely an interesting thing there. She has a support-based NP that has a chance to inflict terror status for 1 time over 3 turns with a 60% chance to activate, which is not bad. Basically, it has a 500% chance to stun whenever it does activate, so there's no guarantee which turn it happens on. She will also increase the party's critical damage for 3 turns, which is what scales up with her NP levels here. So there is at least some incentive to get more copies of Van Gogh, but I'm going to say the majority of that is going to just be in actually getting the singular copy of her, the very first copy, getting her kit online and being able to use her. That's going to matter more than getting additional copies by far. So I don't think there's really that big of a need to actually roll for more unless you just really like using Van Gogh. She will further increase the critical damage of basically any foreigner allies or anyone else that has the existence outside the domain passive, because there are a few non-foreigners that do, by 100% for 3 turns, which does allow for some interesting synergy depending on who her party members are. She can gain 10 critical stars every single turn for 3 turns. So again, adding a nice little engine in there. And then her overcharge effect will increase the party's attack by 30% for 3 turns, meaning that you're going to kind of want to keep sitting there, popping all of her skills, getting to her NP, keeping that enemy debilitated, and repeatedly just sitting there quick carding against them over and over and over and over and over again. Getting them crits, doing it over and over and over again. Really, really nice to use Van Gogh in certain circumstances, and she's actually very strong in a challenge environment. It doesn't seem like she has a whole lot of survivability, and she doesn't really, but she does have some, and the ability to keep debilitating and potentially even stunning can work to her favor. So I do really like Van Gogh, and she is still a solid unit to this day in JP. Next up, we have Fran Saber, a single target quick saber. She's a limited unit all the way back from Summer 2. You will denote here that she has 70% NP charge here, and that's going to be an important point. She's got the 2 quick cards at 3 hits and a singular arts card at 4 hits. And just to denote here, she has basically a summer variant of Galvanism. So she can only use this when her NP gauge is at 10% or higher, but it's going to increase her own NP generation rate for 3 turns. By how much? By potentially 80%. So even though she is a quick unit, she does not have bad NP gen. She can do some crazy stuff with her NP and with her cards. She will reduce her own gauge by 10%. That is the demerit there. So you got to have the 10%. She will drain it then. But you get 80% NP gain, which should help more than make up for that. Just make sure you pair this on a turn where she actually has her good NP gain cards there. Her second skill here can only be used when her own HP has more than 500, and then will reduce one enemy's attack for 3 turns by 20%, but also buff strip them. So that at least has some nice applications in being able to stop things like dodge or invuln or heck, even guts. So really, really good there, assuming it's not one of those, unique challenge variants that has the white border around them, which means they can't be removed. But it is what it is. As long as you can remove it, this is definitely a strong skill. However, it will deal 500 damage to herself without killing, but since it can only be used when the HP is more than 500, you wouldn't really have any capability to test. So it's kind of funny that they have that limitation in there. Her third skill here increases her own attack for 3 turns by up to 20%. Increases her own NP damage for 3 turns by 20%, and then has a 500% chance to inflict burn, which is unstackable on herself for 5 turns. Again, I think you can see this is another one of those units where I actually do really like Fran, but devs, what the hell are you doing with all of these demerits? Even if she didn't have all these demerits, it would not be the end of the world. She would not be the most broken unit. So again, I think it's high time they kind of revisit some of this, and even if they do nothing else, at least get rid of the demerits. Her Noble Phantasm is a 5-hit single target quick NP. It deals damage to one enemy and then has a 500% chance to inflict the charging status for 1 turn to them, which has a 20% chance to activate the debuff below. When activated, it will stun all enemies except the enemy with this debuff for 1 turn after 1 turn. I don't really like this. This to me is a really shitty low chance. I think this absolutely could use an NP interlude and be strengthened. You could activate this all the way up to like 60% and it still wouldn't be broken. It would still have significant chance of failure and just be what it is. So I don't think this is a good spot for this amount to be at, but it is, again, what it is. The overcharge effect here, though, at least is the saving grace, as it has a chance to stun them at 60%. Again, this is going to stun the particular enemy, whereas this one ends up stunning the side enemies. Still not that strong, but I do think there's some interesting potential applications for being able to loop Fran Saber over and over and over again and keep locking a singular enemy down if she gets lucky with the stuns. And I have seen her be very strong in that capacity, but it is going to be RNG based. You may fail, you may not have them completely locked down, so just be careful using it. But it is a pretty hilarious thing to see when it actually does work out. So again, Fran Saber, even though she's a year 2 unit, I think she holds up pretty well, especially for a quick unit. But yeah, I'd like to see those debuffs get worked on. Now, those of you guys in the middle of the Barbados raid right now, you'll know that raids sometimes get annoying and have just, stupid debuff effects that apply right at the beginning of the run. Not unique to raids either. You see this in challenge quests sometimes. And that is one of the big reasons to have a Mamiko Lancer. There's several other big reasons that you may want to roll for her, and that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, she's just a single target, limited summer buster Lancer that has good attack. She does have 12k HP, which is nice. Unfortunately, that is her weakness, is Mamiko got no survivability in her kit. She's got two quick cards here and 2 buster cards here, but a 4-hit arts card to really help that out with a 0.75 NP gain rate. Her first skill here increases her own critical star absorption and critical damage for 1 turn by 1,000 on the absorption and 50 on the damage. Very similar to her Berserker's skill, all on a 5-turn cooldown. Second skill here increases one ally's buster performance for 3 turns by 40%. So it is a 3-turn, 40% targetable buff with Buster that also cleanses them. That is really good. Just be careful about buff block, because the sequence of events here is that it applies the Buster buff, then the cleanse. So you would still get the Buster buff blocked if you did it in that order. But it is what it is. You just may have to deal with it, and it may be the only way to get around it. Still, this is a really useful sort of utility skill, as it is just a powerful steroid with a cleanse in tow, and I think that has just got its niche uses, and it always has and always will. Her third skill here increases the party's attack by 20% for 3 turns, so again, even more party help there, and increases the party's critical star generation rate for 3 turns by 30%. So Mamiko, great at taking out a single enemy and then giving the love to someone else, or great at just setting someone else up, or great at just being the devoted damage dealer herself. The issue is just her survivability. That's the only thing she doesn't have. She's an NP that deals defense ignoring damage and then gains critical stars of up to 20. So got that nice crit star bomb, kind of in the same way that Mamiko Berserker does, though hers is star generation. This one is just a flat star bomb, so really, really nice in that regard. And again, she has all the capability to soak that right back to herself and be able to crit hard with it. So yeah, I think Mamiko, still to this day, a very powerful offensive unit if used correctly. And that is going to be that for that banner. You guys can see here as you end up having the scheduling. Basically, you've got Fran Saber paired with Nemo, and then Mamiko Lancer paired with Van Gogh. Feel sorry for Fran Saber in that regard, because I think Mamiko ended up with the better pairing there, but it is what it is. You can see here, you will also get the return of the craft essences from the Imaginary Scramble event. Obviously, Mystery Treasure here has got some just fantastic artwork here. I wish the CE were better in that regard, because if this CE were all attack stat, this CE would actually be pretty huge. So you can see it's starting battle at 50% gauge at MLB, critical damage by 10%, and arts and buster performance by 10%. That is just a lot of nice effects right there. So the only issue is just that it's not all attack stat, kind of disincentivizes you from leveling it up, but still, definitely an interesting CE nonetheless. That's pretty much all there is in terms of talking about it here, although we can briefly mention Greatest Ocean, as it is a somewhat rare 4-star CE that is all attack scaling, gives arts up, NP damage up, but also overcharge. So, if you needed a budgetary overcharge CE, one that's a 4-star rather than a 5-star, this could be a decent option for you, just depending. So, it wouldn't be the worst CE to have sort of in the back of your kind of list there for a weird situation that called for it. But again, that is the Imaginary Scramble main interlude banner there. Here we've got the Singularity Repair Support campaign. I do believe we get summoning campaigns with this. Again, all Arc 1's main quests go to 0 AP here from this, and it is really, really nice as long as you're managing to get it done during the duration. You can see this does last for over a month. I believe it was at this point in time that they were really desperately trying to get people to finally finish LB6 to get caught up, do 6.5, and actually make it to 7. That is the big thing that they knew was coming at that point in time, so they desperately wanted the community to do it, because that has been an issue for JP over the years, is actually getting people to complete the story. I'm going to stop the recording there, and I'm going to pray to God that this isn't as bad as I think it is. What the hell? Can I skip this one? All right, chat. We did this. We did this. This video is gonna bloat so hard. So hard. You made your own bed? I did. I just didn't expect them to pull out the here's all permanent units banners. Did you do this, I wonder? Thank you for the 57 Roxas. Had we? Yeah, I think we covered Altera. Covered Waiver. Oh my god. I think we covered Yuri Pirate Archers. We didn't cover the Rider form, right? Just do a part 2 tomorrow. It's okay. No. You don't understand, chat. Pretty sure we already covered Mabe, right? I don't remember if we already covered Coup Alter. I know we covered Edison. You didn't talk about McCumhale. Coup Alter was a yes. Okay. We should have already covered this one. Yep. God, you're gonna make me cover the Knights of the Round. Okay. Enkidu's a yes. Cats? I'm pretty sure we already covered cats. Permanent and story locked. Okay. I don't remember if we got Moriarty. I know we got that. I don't think we got that. I don't think we got that. Oh. Chat, to discuss, I'm going to be right back, and I'm just going to go fill up my water because I'm going to need it. Wait, not that. That. Oh. Okay. Oh. Think JP will get a banner too. Supposedly Mr. 2 has said no. But we will see. He's said no before, and then we did, so I'm not sure how much I believe that. Oh god, which thing is my camera? Right there. Okay. Queen of Sheba's only rate up since 2019, I think. Ooh, that's nice. Let me cross-check stuff. Yeah, just double-check these last ones for me here. I'm pretty sure we haven't done any of the SRs. Other than I think we maybe did Cersei? I don't remember, but just did Yagyu, yeah. I never trust the devs. I know. I think sadly that is the state of the community at this point, is that we're quickly like getting there, where I think like a lot of people just really don't trust it. Okay. Sashi is a no. Abby is a no. Moriarty is a no. Fudge. Okay. To the beginning. So now this Singularity repair support campaign is going to largely focus on kind of going back, revisiting all the singularities, and giving you an opportunity to roll for all the units. Again, you can see, just due to the way that the rate ups are going to be handled, that you will have some that are kind of going to end up being somewhat better than others. It may just come down to the pairings and what you want to see. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm going to go through this with you guys. But I'm probably going to go a little bit faster here in this segment, because a lot of these are permanent units we've already covered. A lot of these are low star units that we haven't covered. And so at the end of the day, I'm just going to kind of give you guys the sort of pointers that I think are relevant and necessary to understand about these banners. Remember, banners like this, a lot of people will call them bait banners, but they're probably not in the grand scheme of things if you're a newer player. It really just depends on who you're after and what your goals are. Again, maybe you're like coming up against a banner that people would tell you is a bait banner, but there's really good writers and you don't have any writers. So there is that possibility always. Just keep that in the back of your head, that there may be certain circumstances to really kind of tilt the scales in your favor. So right here on summoning campaign number 1, we've actually done both John and Jalter. We haven't talked about Marie Antoinette. Earlier, I did talk about the fact that I think Marie is a decent sort of unit, and that basically she has sort of this almost 5-star counterpart in Europa nowadays. She is quick AoE. She has come a long way. Again, I'm going to go a little bit faster on this one. You can see she has had the upgrade to increase her charm to 80%. And basically, instead of it being a male enemy, it is now everyone, which is really, really nice. And then an increase to the party's attack for 3 turns because she really just didn't have a lot in the way of firepower. You can see here the big thing is the fact that she grants herself invincibility for 3 attacks. No expiration there. So a really, really nice, solid defensive skill. It just makes her a really tanky unit. She also has got the healing per turn for 5 turns. And then basically a self-heal that also increases her own mental debuff success rate. Her NP has had its interlude and it deals damage to all enemies and removes the entire party's buffs while increasing the party's critical damage now at 20% for 3 turns. And then basically recovers the entire party's HP by up to 1,000. So again, the damage has somewhat been lackluster over the years, but it's gotten some improvement, and she is still a very tanky, very good challenge unit. But she is permanent, so there is that. Lancelot Berserker is still to this day a fantastic looper as long as you're up against 3 enemy waves. He does, ironically enough, have the triple buster deck still as a sort of sign that he is a Berserker. I think a lot of people would probably prefer at least the 2nd quick card instead of the 3rd buster, but hey, sometimes triple buster, you gotta just oonga boonga to get the job done. He's only got a 0.5 NP gain rate, and you can see his hit counts are all under average. That is a concern. And the real reason why is you actually don't have to do too much with any of his first 2 skills. You're really going to want to focus on the 3rd skill, though, that he has, that he actually won't have until you've done a strengthening. This skill, basically, when you unlock it, gives him a 100% 1-turn NP gen rate buff. This is absolutely fantastic and great for getting this man to loop. And you're going to want to loop Lancelot mostly nowadays compared to how he was used prior. Prior to the Scotty meta, he was kind of used as this sort of niche crit unit. You can still use him to that degree, but admittedly, it's very RNG and not always a good outcome since he is a squishy Berserker. He's also going to increase his critical damage by 50% for 3 turns. So again, really, really a nice skill here on a 5-turn cooldown. His ability to NP is an AoE quick NP with 10 hits. That is really, really good. It deals damage to all enemies and then will increase his own attack for 3 turns activating first, which means this is going to keep stacking. This is going to keep getting better, and this is going to allow him to basically just keep getting stronger in a loop. So that's one of the reasons that still to this day, Lancelot Berserker can be good for you. Interestingly enough, you're going to probably want multiple MP levels of him in order to be able to get the job done, especially nowadays with sort of the health bloat on JP nodes, but it is one of the big things basically to kind of focus on with him. Again, if you're trying to use him as a devoted sort of farmer for you, you can use it. Just be careful. There will be situations that Lancelot Berserker does not handle well, particularly nodes that don't have 3 set waves of enemies. So it is what it is. Hello, Mr. Ventos. Welcome, everybody. Again, we are going to be talking about Rais Saber now here, and just to give you a brief aside, I know a lot of people that think Rais Saber is one of the worst units in the game. They basically think he can't ever be fixed. I've actually pointed out that Rais Saber is not far off from being 3-star Super Orion, and that's probably actually the route that they should take him at this point. So again, it just kind of remains to be seen. He doesn't have a whole lot really to look forward to in his kit. He's ironically enough got a tactic skill. It's only 16%, but this can actually be used to set somebody else up. Again, the issue is going to be that he's not going to be that good at taking out a wave himself. His 2nd skill here increases his own NP gen rate for 3 turns, and then his 3rd skill here is Buster Up for 5 turns by 40%. So you can see they do want you to card with him. That is his primary goal. Unfortunately, he's only got the 2 Buster cards at 1 hit each, so that's always been a concern with him. And still, I think the real issue lies a little bit in the NP. So his NP, basically, Saint War Order increases his own attack for 2 turns, up to 100% here, which you guys should manage to have NP 5 of him, and then has a 500% chance to reduce his own defense by 50% for 3 turns. This is just a poop demerit that does not need to exist, especially at this point in FGO. This is just absolutely like destroying his ability to hang around in fights, and they definitely need to find a way to get rid of this. His overcharge effect is a crit star bomb, and it is pathetic. I'm sorry, this just absolutely needs to be better. Give this man a Noble Phantasm upgrade. Basically, remove this. Basically, add, like crit damage or something for buster cards or even all cards, and then make this like a 30 crit star bomb or something like that. And I think you'll see that he'll actually be a lot more fun to use and still not be that broken, because it's not like the man has good attack. Jalter Caster, on the other hand, at least bears worth mentioning since he is a story-locked unit. As a result, none of you guys are pretty much going to have NP5 unless you've actually devotedly rolled for him. So certainly for collectors, a lot of people will go after Jalter Caster. Also, just because they like his googly eyes. Again, he's got a triple arts deck as a buster unit. Welcome to year 1 of FGO. Things were weird. But at the end of the day, triple arts deck is still really strong. The issue at play is he's only got one hit arts card, but he does sort of temper that by having a 1.58 NP gain rate. His first skill here is mental debuff resistance and mental debuff success rate. Again, it is what it is. The second skill at least has had its upgrade where it reduced one enemy's servant NP damage for 1 turn, which sucked, to reduce all enemies NP damage for 1 turn. So now it's not specific to servants and it's everybody. And also reduce their arts and buster resist down of 20% each. So this is going to make his NP hit harder. It's going to make him card harder. It's going to make him actually be able to gain more NP as well. His third skill here is just a flat out terror of 1 time 5 turns with a chance to activate the buff, basically to stun them. Unfortunately, the activation chance is what levels up with this skill. And it caps out at 40%. It is not worthy of your lore, and that is still not a good percent. I'd like to see it somewhere up in the 60% range, maybe with an additional effect added. I think they really can bring these 3 stars up to par yet again, but they've just kind of let them languish for too long. He does get territory creation to help out his 3 arts cards, and then his NP has had an interlude. It is 3-hit AoE NP, deals damage to all enemies, and interestingly enough, charges the NP gauge of foreigner allies by 30%. Unfortunately, he himself is not a foreigner, so he doesn't gain any benefit from that part. But there could be some niche uses of this where he maybe takes out a wave and gives somebody else charge. Again, the issue at play is he doesn't deal a lot of damage, so even if you've got NP5 of him, you may be in a weird sort of point if you don't manage to get him some buffs. But again, who knows? Maybe the first wave or something like that is weak enough for him to be able to kill. He will reduce all enemies' attack for 3 turns and their defense for 3 turns by up to 20% there. Unfortunately, this is after damage, so again, it's going to be good if you're doing NPs in a sequence or you're going up against the same set of enemies over and over again. Not so good, though, for, just him killing the wave. So that is your first Singularity in a nutshell. You can see the pairings. There are no rate-up CEs in this banner. Your next one here is going to end up being the second Singularity campaign. We have already covered Altera and basically Waver here. So next up, we've got Stheno, aka Miss Rare Prism. I have always found that nickname funny because in actuality, Stheno's not the worst unit in the game by any means. She's actually got a pretty decent kit, and a lot of people don't actually understand how to use her effectively. I'm not going to say she's the best unit by any means. She certainly isn't, and I do understand where that meme is coming from, but she's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. Got decent attack power. She, interestingly enough, has a triple quick deck, so at least she's going to be decent for star generation. You can see she's got 25% star gen up there, kind of to help that out. 2-hit quick cards there, but only the single arts and buster. So getting to the NP, I think, is going to be a little bit of the issue. That being said, she does have Bloodsucker, which is a chance to reduce one enemy's NP gauge by 1, while also charging her gauge. Unfortunately, the chance to drain is scuffed, and unfortunately, the amount on the charge is scuffed. I'd like to see this get upgraded, round this out at 100% and 30%, and that would help her and still not make her OP. Second skill here is a chance to charm one male enemy for 1 turn. This is okay. It's not the best in all honesty, and what is considered male is somewhat difficult nowadays in FGO, so I'd like to see this get an upgrade as well and maybe just change it to, I don't know, everything. Third skill here increases the party's attack for 3 turns, and really one of her niche uses here also increases the attack of divine allies for 3 turns. And this is where I've actually found some uses for Stheno, is in taking out a wave and basically buffing the rest of the party by maybe even up to 40%. So definitely a strong skill here with this third skill. She does have a Goddess Essence for some stacking, extra flat damage there, and then her Noble Phantasm has had its upgrade. Basically, it has a chance to instant kill 1 male enemy, has a 150% chance to reduce their defense for 3 turns, and then basically removes their buffs. So, I don't like the fact that it removes the buffs after the fact, but it is a thing, and it is there. So, the issue at play here is, yes, you might be able to use Stheno to instant kill, but at the end of the day, it is an improvement over how it used to be, basically as they kicked the defense down to her NP level. And why did they do that? The reason they did that is to help combat that rare prism mantra. They wanted to give you an extra reason to have more copies of Stheno. Because admittedly, that is partially where it comes from. Having additional copies of Stheno when death was largely viewed as a meme back in the day, not that good of a actual reason to have multiple MP levels. And so some people viewed her as a somewhat useful rare prism in emergencies. I'm going to tell you guys not to do that. It's very difficult to get additional copies of a unit, of any unit nowadays, without rolling a devoted banner for them. So please don't do that. But rare prisms, there's other ways to get them nowadays, and they're not nearly as uncommon as people like to believe. So that usual mentality comes from the early days of FGO and doesn't really apply anymore. Still, the devs found the need to come back in here and actually combat that. And you can see she has the chance to charm 1 male enemy for 1 turn, up to 100%. She might be asking me, how did I manage to kill an enemy with Stheno's NP? That's how, just death procking them. Stheno has a decently high enough death proc, especially if you manage to have NP 5 of her, that, like, yeah, she can actually just consistently death proc certain enemies, and it is hilarious when it happens. So using Stheno to handle a enemy and then basically end up buffing the rest of the party has always been one of the more hilarious uses of her. Next up, we've got Tamamo Cat. She's another unit that's come a long way. She's got still the triple buster deck, but she is an AoE quick berserker for you guys. She's got the 2 turns of attack up, which I do think could be improved, but she at least has gotten an upgrade to her second skill here, which had a chance to reduce one enemy's MP gauge by 60%, which sucked, to basically now a chance to reduce it by 60%, which still sucks, to now it also grants her invincibility for 1 attack over 5 turns. So not the best in terms of a survival skill, but at least it's got a long duration so that, like, you can kind of wait things out, and that is going to help resolve the squishiness of this character somewhat. Her third skill also has had its upgrade. It's her shapeshift that used to just increase her own defense by 27% for 3 turns, to now it still does that, but also increases the max HP by 2,000 and grants her debuff immunity for 1 turn. This was a game changer for Tamamo Cat because of the way her NP works. Having that debuff immunity, really, really good for her. Again, you're going to want to make sure you trigger that on a turn that you NP, otherwise you might regret it. But you can see her Noble Phantasm is a 5-hit NP that deals damage to all enemies. It has had its upgrade, but basically it has a 500% chance to stun herself for 2 turns as a demerit. This also sucks. No one likes this, but it is what it is. She basically goes for a nap. So it makes sense lore-wise to have this. That's where, again, having the debuff immunity means that she will just not stun herself, so you're good. She will recover her own HP every turn for 3 turns by up to 3,000. So that is also nice. You do not have to be asleep to get this effect. So really a decent unit at least being able to keep going and kind of like just being able to persist in a node, even though she doesn't have the best survivability. The biggest issue is it's a 0.71 NP gain rate on a 5-hit quick NP. You really need a lot of enemies to hit, and you really need to actually like buffer if you want to have any shot of looping her. And trust me when I say it is not the best loop at all by any means. Also, remember, you've only got the 1 turn of debuff immunity, so subsequent NPs, you're not protected from that. So you might want to take a cleanse. But again, then you have Alexander here. Alexander is a decent 3-star option for riders. He hits hard. He's got quite a bit of buffs in his kit. You can see he increases the party's attack by 16%. He basically had an upgrade to his second skill, which used to just be Charm against a humanoid enemy, to basically Charm against a humanoid enemy, but now it's at 100%, and also removes their buffs. Having buff removal on a low star unit, really, really good. This is why I tell you guys you should definitely manage to level up your low stars, do all their strengthenings and interludes, because some of them are just budget uses of units that you maybe don't otherwise have in your Chaldea. His third skill here is Omen of the Conqueror. It increases the party's quick performance for 3 turns by 20%. No, this does not actually make him a proper quick support, no matter how many times people try to make this wild claim. It is a nice thing to have. Yes, it can help contribute to damage or NP gen in the party. No, it's not actually good enough to make him even remotely meta. So again, at the end of the day, it's nice that he has it, but it's not that strong of a skill. He does get Riding A+ to kind of help out his quick performance even further, and his NP has had its interlude, but it is sadly only 1 hit. Deals damage to all enemies and then gains crit stars. Good luck looping it. You're going to need it. You're going to actually have to try to get him to even generate 10% in order to have a double Oberon work for him, because he's only got the 1 hit on his NP. Still, decently hard hitting. Boudica is a unit that I think has come a long way as well. She just was not good in the early days of FGO, and we can still make an argument that she could use some love still at this point. She is a somewhat supportive unit. She's got double quick, double arts deck, and you can see they've upgraded the first skill, which used to just increase her damage against Roman enemies for 3 turns by 60%. So an odd 3 turn 60% power mod gets upgraded to basically increasing the party's damage against Roman enemies by 60% for 3 turns, and the party's critical damage by 50% for 3 turns, giving her a very nice upgrade. The second skill here just used to be a Guts of 1 time 5 turns. It is still that now with more HP, and basically it will also increase their max HP. Sorry, it was the exact same HP as before, but it is now targetable, and it will basically allow her to also heal the target with max HP, which is, again, not going to care how much HP you have. Max HP is always effective in that regard, so really, really nice. Just make sure it doesn't get buff blocked. But again, a really somewhat decent support skill, having a targetable Guts there. And then her third skill is Party Arts Performance by 20% for 3 turns. I, honest to God, think you could strengthen this and it would help out, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. They probably don't want their 3-star to be too strong, and I don't think anyone would ever make that claim with Boudica. She's just a very niche option and decent at that. Her NP has had its NP interlude. It increases the party's defense by NP level, which you guys should have NP 5 of her. I think they could certainly buff this up. Again, maybe give her a second NP interlude. I don't know, but I'm going to say the party-wide defense at only 20% there is not that strong. Thankfully, she does get the further party defense for 1 turn of 20% on the overcharge. Still, that in and of itself is okay. I'm going to say nowadays, though, we have units flying around with much greater defense percentages. It's also going to increase the party's attack for 3 turns now by 20%. So again, another nice thing here, but it is not an offensive NP. It's just supportive. I would actually like to see this NP maybe have like a healing component or something to it as well. If they don't want to go harder in the defense category, maybe allow her to actually provide some amount of sustain so that she could be like a low star rider support that people could somewhat take in a lot more challenged environments. Otherwise, right now, I think she's just very much a niche unit. That's going to be your pairings basically for this second Singularity. Now on to the third one. Third one here, we have already managed to talk about Drake, so we don't have to. So next up here is Anne Bonny and Mary Reed. This is aka the Yuri Pirates, as we like to call them. Yuri Pirates, we already covered the archer form of them. This is the rider form. They're also 1 HP memers. They are, interestingly enough, voiced by Kawasumi, who is the voice of the Sabers. The Arturia faces. They have a double quick, double arts sort of setup here. And I think for a long time, while they were somewhat decent, they struggled at least to really find their own due to how they were designed. So you can see the first skill started out with just a crit generation buff of 50% for 3 turns. Then it gets upgraded to grant them the gut status that they desperately craved and needed. That allowed them to be utilized a lot more effectively for 1 HP memes. It basically allowed them to really pop off in terms of their damage. Also gave them a taunt, basically, so that everyone would attack them, so that if you didn't want to Chin Gong them, you could maybe just get them attacked down to low health. And then increase the own NP generation rate by 30% for 3 turns and critical star generation rate by 50% still. So really a decent upgrade there. The second skill used to just be crit damage for 1 turn of 100%. Definitely a strong skill in that regard, but very much a one-off. Then it ends up getting upgraded to have a crit star bomb of 25 stars. Excellent for them because, again, they weren't necessarily the best of star generators, only a 9.1% rate. Again, riders are more known for their ability to soak the stars, not so much generate them. So definitely nice that they gave them a star bomb there. And then the third skill is an increase to their own attack by 30% for 1 turn and star absorption to help that out regardless. So really, really good there that they have that. I think they're in a much better spot thanks to this. You can see they've also had their NP interlude. It's a 6-hit single target NP that deals damage to 1 enemy and then further deals damage with overcharge due to the amount of health they have remaining. So the less health they have, the more damage they do. Again, you can see it is a very nice modifier being stacked on top. So they will do some crazy damage potentially for you. But it just requires a little bit of setup. Are they the most useful unit? No, not really. They don't end up having the charge or really even the hard survival in their kit. So that, I think, is kind of the issue at play. They do have the guts, but again, it is what it is. So I think the Yuri Pirates are definitely better than they used to be, but still the game is somewhat evolved from where they currently stand. Medea Lily. Medea Lily is a somewhat rare story-locked unit hailing from Okeanos. A lot of people really just struggle to get their hands on her, I think, and even by the time they do, usually they manage to have rolled somebody else that may or may not be more useful. She has a triple arts deck. The NP gain rate is actually absurdly low, but this is because of the hit counts being good, and also because of the fact that she has a charge skill that will charge her more than 100%. You only need to take this skill to rank 4 in order to be able to charge her up to full. You can take it higher if you want to lower the cooldown or you want to have a shot at getting to basically overcharge rank number 2, but I don't necessarily recommend it. Her second skill has had its upgrade. It removed the party's poison debuffs and recovered their HP to now basically it increases the amount of HP that it gave. This is nice because I think this is her spot heal outside of her NP, her ability to keep the party up while she can't get to her NP. Sadly, I feel like this way of approaching healing is largely antiquated, but we can talk about that as we get to the NP itself. Her third skill has had its upgrade. It used to increase one ally's healing received by 100% for 1 turn to now basically also increasing their buff removal resistance for 3 turns by 100%. This is a nice upgrade. I know what I've said before about like, hey, if only one unit can have the buff removal resistance, it's not that good. I still stand by that. But at least this is a targetable skill, so you could put this on who you wanted basically to have this. So again, it's entirely possible that you maybe have a unit that has their own buff removal resistance. You take this, put it on someone else, and then you maybe either sacrifice that someone else or you sacrifice Medea Lily to an enemy NP that you know is coming and basically have everybody else kind of stay alive. So it is what it is, but again, I do think this has some niche uses. Basically, her NP has had its upgrade as well, and you can see it's a support NP that will cleanse the entire party, then recover their HP by number of NP levels you have. 6,000 is a lot, 4,000 though is still a decent chunk, and then will also increase the party's debuff resistance by up to 40% for 3 turns. So really not a bad NP. So why did I say that this is antiquated? The reason why is it is usually a lot better to have a much more automated form of healing if you can. And what I mean by that is someone like, say, Merlin, where you're just getting constant healing over time. You just pop the NP. The NP gives a lot of other good beneficial offensive effects, and you don't have to worry too much about healing over time. And it just kind of ends up pushing this to this like sort of well-maintained category that you can kind of take your mind off of and focus on taking the fight to the enemy. Instead, this form of healing ends up being very reactionary. You very much have to wait for the enemy to do a good chunk of damage to you and then try to heal it. I, for one, think that in FGO it is much better to prevent damage first and foremost than to have to ever try to heal through it. So prevention, then again, if you can manage to automate it over time, and last is going to be the sort of responsive way of dealing with it, which runs the risk of maybe you just flat out died to the enemy's NP or something like that. You didn't weather the storm. So again, I do think Medea Lily can be very strong. I've actually seen people do some hilarious stuff in solos with her, but at the end of the day, I think usually a lot of people are going after her because they either like the character or they want the collection copy, not necessarily because of how strong she is as a character at this point in time. Can still be absolutely used. She is still a very powerful healer, but that is all she is in that regard, is a powerful healer. I once had a friend that referred to her as a tickle monster, and that absolutely holds true. It's not like she's got a lot of offensive firepower. Next up, we've got David. David is basically our Giant Slayer. He's come a long way. He's another Buster unit with a triple arts deck. He's a good 3-star. He basically has the ability to increase his own defense by 50% for 1 turn. You don't have to level the skill to get that effect, which is nice. Instead, leveling it gets you the healing, basically, for himself. He also has Harp of Healing, as I've referred to throughout this entire video. Basically removing the party's mental debuffs, so not all debuffs. Then granting them evasion for 1 attack. You'll notice it doesn't have an expiration timer on it. So again, it's basically there until the enemy actually does try to hit them. And then recovers the party's HP by 800. So not the strongest heal, but it is something. Again, even just for the purposes of dodging an NP, that skill can absolutely save your party. Again, his third skill here will increase the party's attack by 18% for 3 turns, and his NP has had its NP interlude, which is nice. It basically ignores evasion for 1 turn, activating first, deals damage to 1 enemy, and then deals 200% super effective damage to a giant enemy. The overcharge effect will also seal their skills for 1 turn, which has some interesting applications. So definitely really a good unit against giants. Even against non-giant enemies, David can still be serviceable and still help keep the party alive when an enemy NP ends up kind of barreling down on you. And basically, that's going to be your third campaign. For some odd reason, they chose not to actually post the schedule for this one, but I can assume it's just simply because everybody is on Raid Up with Drake. Then we get to the 4th Singularity, aka London. We have already covered Mordred and Jack the Ripper. So next up, we've got Nursery Rhyme, as I meant to call her. Basically, the book, as a lot of people will refer to her as well, is a arts AoE caster. She's got triple arts in here. She deals medium damage by the game's own definition, which is not very strong. That's going to be not really the reason that you're using her. She's not going to be dealing that much damage for you. It's going to be more everything else that she kind of does. So she can increase her own critical damage for 3 turns by up to 50%, and star absorption for 3 turns by 600%. Again, the star absorption here, basically not too great. Casters don't have a very high rate, so this could absolutely use an upgrade. Second skill here increases her own defense by 30% for 1 turn, and then increases her own defense for 3 turns by an additional 30%, making her quite tanky. This is again shapeshift in a nutshell, just like Tamamo has, but then also increasing her own debuff resistance for 3 turns by 40%, making her harder to land debuffs on. Her third skill here charges her own NP gauge by 40%, an odd increment, but still welcome on an arts unit. Recovers her own HP by up to 2,000, and then removes her own debuff. So even if you do get a debuff landing on you, you can cleanse it right off. does get territory creation A. And again, her Noble Phantasm has had its upgrade already and basically is a 3-hit AoE NP. It deals damage to all enemies, reduces their defense by 20% for 3 turns, and then has an overcharge effect that has a chance to reduce their NP gauge by 1. This is actually what is really nice about Nursery Rhyme is she is an AoE arts looping, AoE draining caster. So I have utilized Nursery Rhyme quite hilariously in certain stally challenge fights where I basically just took in the support to help keep her alive and just had her sit there draining and looping. You combine her with someone like Waver back in the day as well, and you managed to have quite a bit of drain going on in the party, and it was pretty hilarious to watch at how effective it could be. I actually utilized a Waver Nursery Rhyme comp to get through the old Hassan challenge quests, where you had to defeat a whole bunch of them, and it worked out really effectively in that regard. You can still do stuff like that to this day. It's not going to deal a whole lot of damage. It'll be slow, it'll be plodding, but it will kill, and that is definitely a good use for Nursery Rhyme. Still, she's definitely fallen behind in terms of damage. She doesn't really provide a whole lot of support, so I don't really recommend devotedly rolling for her. Lancer Alter. Oh boy. So, again, full disclaimer, waifu is Arturia. Particularly, I love the Lancer form. Larturia. Lalter, definitely just the edgy version of that. Lalter is a really interesting unit in the fact that she has always been very similar to Salter, just sort of top dog in the AoE Lancer category amongst 4-stars. Even on paper, you could see her pretty much at the top of the list at this point. Certainly, though, the issue resolves around, 1, having NP levels of her because she is a story-locked unit, and 2, actually having the ability to 3-turn. At first, she really couldn't, and she was utilized more for clearing a wave and then critting enemies down with her insanely good crit skill that has been the prototype for every other crit skill that's pretty much come after it. Again, she's got double quick, double buster, basically the standard Lancer deck here. At least decent hit counts on the arts card where she would need it. And she's had an upgrade here to her mana burst that used to be a buster up of 1 turn of 55%. To now, it is buster up of 55% for 3 times 3 turns. I hate this. Stop doing this, devs. Just make it 3 turns. This limitation is dumb. But I kind of understand because Lalter has some pretty insane firepower. This will also now charge her NP gauge by 20%. This does allow her to be able to 3-turn with double Oberon, as again, any unit now in the game that can get at least 10% charge can be made to 3-turn. So yes, you will be starting her out with something weird like a MLB K-scope or just a like K-scope with a maxed out mana loading. Good luck on the coins, but it is what it is. Still, it is a very strong 3-turn for her as she just naturally has quite a bit of damage. Just be careful that you don't like pre-card or end up having to post-card an NP with one of the buster cards there. Her second skill increases her critical star absorption for 1 turn by 1,000, increases her own critical damage for 1 turn by 50, and gains her crit stars of 10. It is an all-in-one crit skill. This doesn't seem that OP nowadays, but it is the model that they use to go on to Beowulf, and then frequently after Beowulf, even more newer units have skills like this. So it is just pretty much as ideal as it can be. Her star absorption is not the best as a Lancer, but certainly it is also not the worst, so 1,000 should be a decent amount. It will not soak every star, but it is still very strong for her. Her third skill here is her Charisma. It basically was party attack up of 3 turns by 12%, and then in the ultimate cock tease, the devs decided to tease the Wild Hunt, which is a interesting aspect to her lore that they have never explored, but I digress. The whole point is now it increases the party's attack up by 20%, which is great, and then also increases her own damage against lawful and good alignment enemies for 3 turns by 30% each. Hilariously enough, she herself is lawful and good. I'm not sure I necessarily understand that one, but it is what it is. Still, really, really nice niches there. Absolutely added some great firepower, and that is why Lalter still, amongst the 4 stars, remains on top. Her NP has had its interlude, hilariously enough. It deals damage that ignores defense buffs to all enemies, has a 60% chance to NP seal them, and will inflict curse for 5 turns to them of up to 1,000 damage. The curse is okay, it's not that good. The NP seal, if you get it, you get it. But again, at the end of the day, you're more after damage and crit power with Jalter. So yes, she is still absolutely a fantastic unit. You're going to struggle basically to amplify the damage more due to her charge situation. But again, it is still very strong to this day. Jekyll and Hyde. Oh boy. Man, if there's a unit out there that I think the devs just absolutely missed the mark on, it's this one. I think Jekyll and Hyde is the most disappointing unit in FGO. I'm not going to call him the worst. I'm not going to call him, unusable or anything like that. I think he's just disappointing. And the reason why is because I think it's a very cool character and it's a very cool concept. Jekyll and Hyde's entire ability is being able to shift between his assassin form and his berserker form. The problem is, it's just a very lopsided kit that just does not work out. The way they handled this is just abysmal. You can see he gets different stats depending on which form he's in. Again, different alignments. Everything is different. So it's effectively 2 different units in one unit. He's got double quick, double buster deck here. His first skill increases his own attack for 3 turns. And then as Hyde, the berserker form, further increases his own attack by up to 35%. Do you notice how bad this is? This is definitely an issue where when he's in his assassin form, he only gets 15%. When he's in his berserker form, he gets 50%. You are 100% incentivized to never use Hyde in assassin form. It is just inherently worse. That's the problem that they have with this. I think they could have done this better. They could have approached it from a standpoint of a unit kind of moving back and forth, becoming Jekyll, becoming Hyde, becoming Jekyll, becoming Hyde, and then basically being able to get different effects at play depending on what's going on there. But the way Jekyll currently stands, it is just absolutely better to use every single one of his skills as Hyde, as his berserker form. So you can see his second skill increases his own stun success rate for 1 time by 15%, as Hyde further increases it by 135%. This is just crap. Otherwise, he has a 10% chance to stun 1 enemy for 1 turn. So, 25% chance to, 160. Third skill here. Increases his own critical damage for 3 turns by 15%. As Hyde further increases it by 35%. So, again, you can see the trend here. They did come back in and upgrade this skill and basically said, hey, as long as you are Jekyll, aka the assassin form, you will charge your own NP gauge by 80% when you use the skill. This is bad. And the reason it's bad is because while this gets him to Hyde faster, it means you have to use this skill as Jekyll and then wait for it to come back in order to be able to utilize it as Hyde. It's kind of tone deaf. They just really need to go back in and rework this unit from the ground up. If there is any unit in the game that needs it, it's Jekyll and Hyde. Do not roll for Jekyll and Hyde. There's no point to it. He's a permanent unit. You can get him in the FP pool, but it is what it is. The other issue at play is he has had his NP interlude. You can see the Noble Phantasm can't be used when he's in Berserker form. There's a 500% chance to change his own class to Berserker. So basically, it can change him to Berserker, but once he's Berserker, you can't use it. That's stupid. It should have some effect, either changing him back into Assassin or I don't know what. Like, either way, it should do something, basically, if you get back to his NP again. Has a 500% chance to increase his own max HP permanently by, again, up to 6,000, which is a strong heal. And then has a 500% chance to increase his own Buster performance permanently by 40%, basically. So this could all be really good. I would just absolutely love to see him go back into Assassin, then be able to trigger the third skill again, basically to get him more charge, so that you spend time in each form, keep getting back, keep stacking buffs, and then he becomes this, like, He's really weak at first, but he's this unstoppable juggernaut as he gets going. That would be way better of a concept. And I can think of that, so I know the devs haven't not thought of that sort of thing. They just haven't done it, and that's why he's disappointing. Next up is Babbage. Babbage here is a pretty solid AoE buster caster. I think his biggest issue nowadays at this point is he has just gotten completely left behind by the monster that is Coup Caster. He's got double arts, double buster deck here. He's got a 0.9 NP1 gain rate. 0.91 NP gain rate. I don't know why I mixed that up. Increases his own NP generation rate by 30% for 3 turns, and then increases his own critical star absorption for 1 turn there by 1,000. His second skill here has had its upgrade. It increases his own attack for 3 turns now by 40% with a hard survival invincibility there of 1 turn. And his third skill has also had its upgrade where it increases his own NP damage for 3 turns by 25%, crit damage by 100% for 1 turn, and has a chance to inflict an unstackable burn to himself while gaining crit stars. So the biggest issue you're going to have is being able to soak the stars to him at only 0.48. Again, you can see he did get the 1,000 there, but you're going to be struggling there at 0.48 with that. We already talked about Jalter earlier, how she had a 1,000 star soak and does not soak everything, and that was with 90 star absorption. So again, the issue with Babbage generating and soaking the stars, he at least has everything in his kit to help with it, but yeah, it just still may not work out too well for you. Again, his NP has had its NP interlude. He's 4-hit AoE, deals damage to all enemies, and then simply reduces their defense after for 3 turns. He's a very simple, straightforward unit. He's not bad, but again, at this point, he's just getting trounced by some of the crazy upgrades that we've seen. You can see the banner pairings here. Jalter will be on rate up with Jack. This is a relatively rare rate up for Jalter. She is the only 4-star on that banner. If you want her, go after her there. I do recommend it. Otherwise, it's somewhat difficult to acquire her. Summoning campaign number 5, we've actually already talked about Queen Maeve and Coup Alter. We've also talked about Thomas Edison. So let's skip right here to Finn McCool. That's the best way to say this name. Don't say it the other way. Basically, Fionn has come a long way. He essentially is an arts AoE looper, but the way he started out, he was one of the worst units with regards to how he was designed. So you can see he started out with crit star gen rate of 38% for 3 turns on an arts unit, just rather weird pairing. They changed it up to give him crit star generation rate for 3 turns of 50%. Party NP gen rate of 30% for 3 turns, so nice party application, but also helping his loop ability there. Second skill was a self-evasion, which grants a chance to evade each attack for 1 turn of 100%. This sucked. You had to lure it in order for it to have a 100% chance to succeed, and who knows, maybe the enemy just has sure hit or invuln and pierce. Again, chance to draw attention to all enemies for self for 1 turn, and then a chance to reduce his own charm resistance to female enemies. Thankfully, they came back in and they upgraded this and just said, you know what, this skill does suck. What if we just gave it 30% charge and reduced the insane 10-turn cooldown on a shit skill to 7 turns? They made this skill a lot more palatable. His third skill, still to this day, arts up of 1 turn of 40%. I do think they could maybe help that out with multi-turn duration, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sit there and cry foul or ask for it too much because Fionn is a decent looper at this point. In fact, with that in mind, Fionn can actually manage to outperform some of his other contemporaries, especially if you have higher MP levels of him. I've often compared him to Melt Lancer, who is a limited unit, whereas Fionn is permanent, so it is entirely possible to just have more copies of Fionn than her, and maybe have him actually outperform her. That being said, you have Percival nowadays that's also lying around and just has a much more fluid and easy-to-use kit, so it is what it is. He has had his NP interlude as a 3-hit AoE NP that deals damage to all enemies and then grants himself mental debuff immunity. He's also going to reduce the enemy's attack for 3 turns, so not bad. Again, he's come a long way. He's a lot better than how he used to be, so I recommend everybody hail Fionn. Just not too much. Robin Hood's next up. Still to this day, Robin Hood hits hard. we really don't have to say that much more about him. He's had some decent upgrades, and I think you'll see that he still has a solid kit. He's got a 0.87 NP gain rate here. His arts crits can absolutely get him back to full. Again, 2-hit arts card there. His first skill has been basically set to a better status now at this point. Reduces all enemies' attacks for 3 turns, and then basically inflicts poison of 500 damage to them for 5 turns with all enemies. Just make sure you have some way of applying poison. He's really going to want it. His second skill increases his own NP gen rate by 30% for 3 turns. Make sure you have this on when you're NPing and carding with him. And then his third skill here is an evasion, ignore evasion for 1 turn, and then a self evasion of 1 turn with a crit star bomb of 20. So really, really solid. He just doesn't end up having anything to really soak, and that's kind of his issue, even though he does have decent star absorption. Still, his NP, still to this day, one of the harder hitting low star archer NPs. It's a 1-hit arts NP that deals damage to 1 enemy and then deals super effective 200% modifier damage to poison status enemies. Functionally ends up doubling the amount of damage he does. He still easily is the 3-star archer to beat in that category, and it usually requires somebody to be really in niche in order to beat him. Honestly, Robin Hood still to this day can outpunch 4 and even 5 stars in the right set of circumstances, so do not overlook him. He is an excellent budget option for you. Geronimo is a big meme at this point. A lot of people think Geronimo's bad. He's actually not. Don't ever let anyone tell you that Geronimo is a bad unit. He is actually pretty good. His issue is his kit is the most boring kit amongst all servants ever created, pretty much. And to make that pretty clear, you can see he's got a 0.9 NP gain rate. He has his first skill, a buster up of 1 turn of 50%. His second skill, an arts up of 1 turn of 50%. Can you guess the third skill? Yeah, it's a quick up of 1 turn of 50%. It's not that these steroids are bad. They're actually pretty decent. It's just that they're just completely, like, thoughtless. The devs just did not do anything with this kit. They absolutely phoned it in, and that's why people are actually begging for him to get an upgrade. It's not that he's bad. It's that his kit is just the most boring thing imaginable. His NP has had its interlude, deals damage to all enemies, is a 1-hit NP, has a chance to reduce their attack basically by 20% for 3 turns, but then it also heals the party by 1,000 and increases the party's debuff resistance. So interestingly enough, Geronimo can kind of loop and manage to keep the party alive. Yeah, I know I just said he's got a 1-hit arts NP. I don't care. You can actually force that to 3 turn. It's hilarious. It's not good, but it's hilarious. So again, Geronimo's NP damage actually decently solid. He's still going to get beaten by the likes of Caster, but ultimately at the end of the day, he's a serviceable unit as well. Just, again, very, very boring kit. So, summoning campaign. Sorry, let's go back to this real quick and show you guys the pairings here. Again, you can see Fionn is going to be paired with Mabe, whereas Ku is going to get Edison. Definitely a nice pairing there since the two of them are both story locked. Summoning campaign number 6 is literally Edmond Dantes. We already covered him before now, so we don't have to mention anything here. But again, this is another shot at a limited unit. Summoning campaign number 7, we have already talked about Ozymandias. He is a very, very solid option. Chat, did we talk about Ozzy? I feel like we did? Okay, God. I don't know why. I feel like we didn't. Chat, whenever I get a DM, if the DM is just hi, I'm not answering the DM. Okay? I know what it is. It's someone soliciting for their OnlyFans. I don't care. Okay. So we have, in fact, already covered Ozymandias. What we haven't covered, though, are the Knights of the Round. So each one of them is a story-locked unit. Gawain is an interesting option nowadays. We certainly have Barcast, and I think Gawain's kind of gotten done dirty in relation to Barcast. He does have one edge on her, but otherwise Barcast pretty much has the entire rest of her kit, and obviously the attraction of, you know, being a busty female that a lot of people are going to go for. That being said, Gawain is the epitome of a himbo, and in the best way imaginable. He's got a triple buster gorilla deck here. He ends up having an increase to his own attack by 20% for 3 turns, and then further a buster up of 30% for 3 turns if he's on a sunlight battlefield. The second skill here started out as a party-wide attack up for 3 turns of only 12%, and then became Nightless Charisma, which ends up basically increasing it to 20%, and then also granting him sunlight battlefield buff for 1 turn. So Gawain can bring the sun. That is the advantage that he ends up having over a unit like Barcast. His third skill here will charge his gauge by 20%. This is unfortunate because it just means that you can 3-turn with him, but only with double Oberon. But it is still an option, and you may be able to just have him sort of take out a wave with maybe some party charge flying around, so it's not too bad of an issue. He can gain critical stars as well with this and grant himself a guts of 1 time 1 turn. This needs an upgrade simply because what the hell? 1 time 1 turn. Why? Why is it that bad? Just give it 3 turns at minimum. Give it multiple turn durations just to help him out being used in challenge environments. Again, it is what it is. His Noble Phantasm has had its upgrade as well. It is a 4-hit AoE NP that deals damage to all enemies, seals their skills for 1 turn, and then further increases the critical damage of his Buster cards by 50% on Sunlight Battlefield for 3 turns, and then increases his own critical star absorption by 300% on Sunlight Battlefield for 3 turns. This means that he's only going to have it on the 1 turn you have Sunlight Battlefield, unless you're actually on a battlefield that has sunlight, and then he's just going to actually be carding really hard. He will inflict burn of 5 turns for them of 1,000 there. So again, not too much there. His NP isn't that powerful, but it is in a much better place than it used to be, given the fact that he has had the NP interlude. So again, I do think Gawain is very serviceable, but still somewhat clunky and does need another look, especially in comparison to Barcast. Tristan is another unit that I'm going to immediately compare to Balbon Sith there. Sort of the immediate LB6 comparisons were inevitable here at this point. He's not a bad unit. He's got double quick, double arts there. And again, a 9.7k attack up there. His Harp of Healing has had an upgrade. It used to just be mental debuff cleanse there, and then an evasion of 1 attack with no expiration, as well as 600 healing. So not quite as good as David's. But now they gave him a unique variant here that also increases his quick performance by 30% for 3 turns, giving him a steroid when he didn't have any in his kit prior to that point. Removes the entire party's debuffs, not just mental, and recovers the party's HP now by up to 1,000. So they kind of just recognized that it was a very weak variant of the skill. The second skill here still charges his MP gauge and has a chance to seal his own NP by 500%. So it's a 50% charge skill. You just have to be careful either to not use this the turn you want to NP, or to use it before his first skill so that you can cleanse it off. His third skill removes 1 enemy's buffs. This has always been one of the advantages to using Tristan. Having that is really, really nice, and reduces their critical attack chance for 3 turns by up to 20%. Again, Tristan has still a pretty decent kit. The only issue that I have is that Balbon has sort of the better challenge kit, especially at survival, at staying up. Again, Tristan really only has that first skill in that regard. The second skill is a self-MP seal instead of NP sealing the enemy like Balbon Sith does. So I certainly would like to see him get another glance over, even if they don't want to really amp his damage too much. His NP has had its interlude. It is a 7-hit single target NP that basically grants sure hit, and then also ignores defense buffs on the enemy. It's also going to reduce their debuff resistance for 3 turns by 30%, making it easier basically for him to manage to do other things, like reduce the critical attack chance. But that's really all he does, because everything else is kind of just baked in. So Again, I do think Tristan is a very usable unit to this day still. He is very comparable with Balbon Sith. Just, I think she still kind of has an edge over him in a lot of ways. Whereas I would like to see the Knights of the Round and the Fairy Knights in somewhat parity, just with points of differentiation. Bedivere here has also gotten some nice love. He is a unit that you will have at least one copy of if you've completed Camelot, but certainly getting additional copies of him can be somewhat difficult. This will not be a bad opportunity to try and acquire him here. Again, he is a buster single target Saber. He does actually do quite a bit of damage there. He does have the double buster cards to help him out. His military tactics got an upgrade along the time that a lot of the tactics were getting upgrades. And you can see it's now increasing the party's NP damage for 3 turns by 20%, whereas before it was just the party's NP damage for 1 turn by 16. It's also going to increase the party's NP gen rate by 30% for 3 turns, giving him some utility there as he can provide a steroid and NP gain capabilities to another unit of the party. His second skill here will charge his own gauge by 30% on a 6-turn cooldown. So yes, that does mean that you can 3-turn with him in a double Koyanskaya Oberon setup. Kinda hilarious, especially since the first skill has a 5-turn cooldown, meaning you could activate it on turn 1 and then turn 2. So really a nice one, and then also increasing his mental debuff resistance. His third skill here increases the party's defense by 30% for 1 turn, and increases the party's debuff resistance by 1 turn, basically even further. That is what's going to level with the skill. So again, you can choose to level the skill up or not. It's really not that imperative, just depending on how you're using him. His NP has had its interlude. It's a 2-hit single target NP. It deals damage to 1 enemy and then increases their own buster performance for 1 turn, basically by 1%. Or sorry, basically by 30%. Sorry, my brain is just beginning to turn circles over doing all of these. But again, it's a really, really strong and capable unit. Doubly so if you can kind of follow up that NP with the buster cards there to gain the effect of the buster up. So I do recommend Bedivere as long as you can get more copies of him. That is what's really going to allow him to stand out as a budget unit and a awesome sort of capable sort of support in that regard as well. So again, he's a 3-star. He's limited. This will not be a bad banner to roll. All the Knights of the Rounds are pretty good in that regard, and Ozzy is absolutely stellar going forward. So this is a sneakily good banner tucked in here. Summoning campaign number 8 here is for Enkidu, who we have already covered, and Kets, who we have already covered. So next up on the list here is Medusa Lancer. Medusa Lancer, aka Anna, is basically an interesting unit. She is single target quick, and she is not bad, especially in the grand scheme of things for single target Lancers. She's got the double quick cards, but then also manages to have 2 4-hit arts cards. The downside is her NP gain rate is kept low because they feared her. She had charm to 1 male enemy basically, and then instead it basically got up to 100% so that it didn't have that chance of failure if you lured it. Also, while adding a steroid that reduced the enemy's quick resistance for 3 turns of 20%. This does mean you're not going to be able to carry it with you through subsequent waves, but still really solid if you're going up against the same enemy over and over again. She gets monstrous strength for an increase to her attack for 1 turn by 30%. Certainly would like to see that at least get upgraded to the 2-turn variant. And then her third skill here started out as a guts of 1 time 3 turns with self-invincibility for 1 attack to basically all that same effect, but then also charging her NP gauge and reducing the cooldown down from the 7 turns that it was. So really, really nice in that regard. Certainly allows her to be able to be used a little bit more effectively now that she has charge, and that's kind of what I think the devs fear about her. So you can see she has had her NP interlude as an 8-hit single target quick NP that deals damage to 1 enemy and reduces their quick resistance by 20% for 3 turns. Again, stacking that quick down. She also has a chance to stun them for 1 turn of 80%, which is a very hefty rate there. And that's why I said the devs fear her, is because she has stun and she has charm in her kit here. So she very well, hilariously enough, can stun lock and charm lock units, provided they are vulnerable to it. That's why she can actually be somewhat effective as a single target Lancer, and her damage is not bad. Again, the issue is going to be, can you actually loop her? That's just going to come down to your sort of supporting of her, but I do think she can be a decent unit still. Gorgon is a story-locked unit, and very infamously the unit that got Korea in trouble when the devs of Korea managed to tweak the banner rates for her. Regardless, she is somewhat difficult to get your hands on. She doesn't get a whole lot of rate up, so this may be a decent opportunity to roll. She's got 10k attack. She is an AoE Buster Avenger. Got the 2 Buster cards there in her deck and a 5-hit Arts card. Her monstrous strength started out as the 1-turn variant of 50% and got upgraded to 4 attacks over 2 turns, basically of 50% there, and then increasing her own critical star absorption of Buster cards for 1 turn by 600. This is a nice upgrade, but this is still a very clunky skill. It's very limiting in how it can be used. Her second skill is Gut Status 1 time 5 turns. It also increases her own critical damage for 3 turns, basically by 50%. And her third skill here is just Mystic Eyes A+ with a chance to petrify that will scale up over 100% if you lure it. But remember, just because it's over 100% does not guarantee that it will succeed, as again, you can have units that have magic resistance and stuff like that coming into play. She is an AoE Avenger that has had her NP interlude, though, and thus she has a 3-hit NP that deals damage to all enemies and then charges the party's NP gauge by a very odd amount of 15%. The good news is, because she has at least 10% charge, she can be made to 3-turn with double Oberon. So for those of you guys that wish to farm with her, you can do so. Though just be careful in the opening first and second waves there, as you're not going to have those Oberon third skills on just yet. You will inflict Curse of 5 turns to them for 1,000 damage here. So again, a decent sort of addition in terms of offense. But I do think Gorgon is a very usable unit nowadays, especially compared to where she should be, or sorry, where she was. So I do like seeing her at this point. They could maybe make her stronger if they want to, but I think they would run into issues compared to maybe the 5-star Avengers at that point. Ushi Rider is a very fantastic unit still to this day. She's very serviceable as far as 3-star riders go. Again, a lot of people point quickly to the NP damage numbers and point out just how much she can rival even 5 stars with those numbers, and that is definitely true. The issue with Ushi is going to be getting her back to another NP. She does have a 0.87 NP gain rate, double quick, double arts deck, but only 2 hit count on them. And again, you can see her first skill started out as just party NP gen rate of 20%. It got upgraded basically to also include quick performance for 3 turns of 20%, kind of helping out that damage and that refund. Her second skill here started out as a party-wide attack up for 3 turns of 17% and got upgraded to 3 turns at 20%, also with crit damage of 3 turns of 50%, with a nice crit star bomb of 20 stars. Thankfully, she is a rider. She's got really high star absorption there at 204, higher than most riders there. So really, really nice for her to have a star bomb. Her third skill here is self-evasion for 1 turn and then crit star gen rate of 100%. So again, you can see she's got the ability to soak and crit harder there. Really, really a decent kit in terms of her crit synergy. Why did I say it's going to be difficult to get her back to an NP? Because her NP is 1 hit. That's it. You not get any more. So the ability to charge off the back end of the NP is going to be suspect. She has had her NP interlude, though, increasing the amount of damage. Otherwise, her overcharge effect remains intact here, as it just increases critical star generation rate by 50% for 3 turns. So again, generating crit stars with her isn't the problem. Soaking the crit stars with her isn't the problem. You need the cards, and you need to crit with them, particularly with the arts cards, in order to have your hopes of getting back to more NPs. You can maybe do it at least once, but getting back to it maybe even a 3rd time is going to be very, very difficult depending on card distribution. So Ushi still hits really hard, really a good 3-star rider, but just be careful with her in terms of trying to assume that she's better than her higher rarity counterparts. Last up here, we've got Jaguar Man. Jaguar Man is another story locked unit. She came out alongside Gorgon. I did wish back when we had the Year of the Tiger that they actually did something for Taiga, but it is what it is. They have given her some love over time that has helped her out, but she's still not the most usable unit. She's a single target Buster Lancer with double Buster deck there, double quick as well. And they ended up coming back into Jaguar Punch here that used to just be Buster up of 3 turns of 30% on a 10-turn cooldown, which was atrocious. And ended up upgrading it, basically still allowing the steroid to remain the same, but basically also granting her the ability to give Forest Battlefield buff for 3 turns to herself, which is a huge boon to her damage. And then a crit star bomb of 30 stars while also reducing the cooldown down to 7 turns. Looks like the devs realized, just like in Fion's case, this was a shit skill and definitely needed its upgrade. Second skill, still a increase to her own attack for 2 turns of 30% there, basically her monstrous strength, her own variant there. And then Jaguar Eye increases her own critical damage by 50% for 3 turns, while further increasing critical star generation rate and critical star absorption for 3 turns if she is on the forest battlefield. So really good that she can provide that, but it doesn't stop there. As her NP is a single target Buster NP that is 2 hits, it will also have sure hit here and basically deal damage to 1 enemy. She's also going to reduce their debuff resistance for 3 turns by 10%. Not a whole lot there. So I think the real thing that I want to see, because I don't think Taiga's that bad in terms of the damage department, but I would really like to see Taiga have some sort of ability to secure getting to another NP, give her some charge, or better yet, give her some NP gain, kind of help her keep working as maybe a carding and challenge unit. But it really just depends. I still would like to see them really lean in on that forest battlefield buff, as she's one of the only units that really utilizes it. Again, you can see the pairings here. You've got Enkidu with Medusa Lancer there. So kind of cursed that they paired single target Lancers with each other. But then you've got basically all of the story locked units paired with each other, which is really a tantalizing banner because of that. These are rare units. They're all paired up together. This is a solid banner for those of you guys that did not roll on the original Babylonia campaign. And last but not least here, we get to summoning campaign number 9. This is going to be basically our Singularity repair end campaign for the Epics of Remnant. So first up here, we've got James Moriarty. He is a very solid single target Buster Archer. I'd like to see Moriarty maybe get some love still down the stretch here. He's only got a 0.38 NP gain rate. He's single target Buster with a triple arts deck. So again, welcome back, but his hit counts are good. Again, you can see they've upgraded his first skill to grant him still the ignore invincibility, but now also ignore defense. Increase his own critical star absorption for 1 turn by 600% and gain crit stars basically of 20, all on a 5-turn cooldown, meaning you can double it up very quickly. His second skill here basically got rid of the stupid bullshit requirements of stars here. You can only use it when there's 10 crit stars or more, but it no longer consumes the stars. It's also going to charge his gauge by 50%, increase his own NP damage by 20% for 3 turns, and now will grant the entire party evil alignment except himself for 3 turns. He doesn't need evil alignment because he is evil. His third skill here will basically now increase the party's attack for 3 turns by 20% and also increase the attack of evil alignment allies except himself by 20% for 3 turns. I wouldn't mind if this also applied to Moriarty, but that would maybe risk breaking him as he definitely has that Buster synergy going on. So if they did that and then an NP interlude on top of that, he would be in a really crazy state. Still, I would like to see him get his NP interlude. He has a 12-hit single target NP. It deals damage to 1 enemy and reduces their defense activating first, so you get to take advantage of this with the NP and subsequent cards, and it lasts 3 turns at 20%, so it does stack if you keep going over the same unit over and over and over again. Again, I think with actual Buster synergy there, being able to pair this man with Oberon has really helped them out quite a bit. He is in a much improved state just due to the meta, but certainly that is something to take into consideration as what will happen as the meta shifts. Chez, we've already managed to talk about, so we don't have to cover. Musashi, Saber, we have not managed to talk about yet. Certainly, we've got the Samurai Remnant collab coming out here, so I think a lot of people are going to be hyped to roll for Musashi at some point. She is still a very good unit, but she is still not like the most meta of units. Her damage has never been deniable. It has always been strong. She's got 12k attack, a triple Buster deck, pretty good hit counts overall, and certainly has always had the capability to just be able to pump out, just punishment. Her 5th form has had its upgrade now on JP, basically allowing it to double the number of hits when normal attacking for 3 turns instead of 1, increasing the damage when normal attacking for 3 turns instead of 1, and reducing the damage taken for 3 turns instead of 1. The big thing to understand about 5th form is, while yes, it doubles the number of hits, it basically has no downside. So essentially, the way this one works, and it's not really well explained in game, but all this is doing is by doubling the number of hits, you're just getting more hits for potential NP gain and crit stars. So it's really, really nice for you to have in that regard. The real actual damage amplification going on is right here on this second line. So again, I think a lot of people get really confused as to how 5th form actually functions. Her second skill here is an Invuln Pierce, which is really solid on a Buster unit, and an increase to her Buster performance of 1 turn by 50%. Again, it's on a 5-turn cooldown, so hey, you might be able to double pop it. But at the end of the day, it's just a strong, solid skill. Third skill is her Hard Survival with self-invincibility for 1 turn and crit star gen rate for 3 turns, while also cleansing her own debuffs. Really, really good, really nice in a challenge, and certainly allows Musashi to be used somewhat in solo comps, or as well in some form of, just crazy sort of like just high octane boss clearing type of comp. Her NP has had its interlude, and boy is it a doozy. A lot of people reacted negatively to this NP interlude, saying it was too strong. I cannot imagine anyone in the game crying over something being too strong at this point, especially with a unit that had basically not had any upgrades at the time. None of our single target Sabers really had any NP interludes. This was the first time they were seeing that, and I think they reacted negatively because it finally put a Saber in the position that a Saber always should have been. Still, I understand complaining when it's meta upsetting. In this case, it was not meta upsetting in the slightest. It was just a well-deserved, long overdue buff to Musashi. It is a 7-hit single target NP. It deals damage to 1 enemy, and now deals super effective damage to Alter Ego and Moon Cancer enemies, giving her sort of that extra niche like Kama has against some of these rare extra classes that a lot of people don't have a good solution for. Interestingly enough, I'm really not sure why they decided to pitch in Moon Cancer here, just simply because single target rulers need some love, but it is what it is. I can definitely understand it against Alter Ego because we did not have a lot of solutions to that problem. Again, she will remove their buffs after damage. I wish this were before, but still better late than never. And her overcharge effect will increase her NP damage for 1 turn by 30%. So really a decently solid amount right there. Thank God. My screen froze and I caught it, chat. You guys didn't notice it, but I caught it right there. Yeah. So right before I moved on, because I saw someone mention Taiga and I was like, oh, I don't know why, but it just made me think wait, did my thing freeze on Taiga? And whew, just barely we managed to catch that. I'd say since I had to pause, let's end there. I was gonna try to finish all of them, but I don't want to go too far over stream time, so we'll go ahead and end it there for tonight. Sadly, we didn't get this one done. This one would have basically been somewhat the end of October, so we didn't get too far, but considering how many banners this has, the only other thing I'm going to deal with like that is going to be in December again. So I think this is actually the worst one. So hello, Saltington. Sorry, I do see when you guys usually at me in chat, but I just don't respond while I'm recording like that. Aiken Murphed, thank you for the follow. Ventos, again, thank you, buddy, for the raid. Sorry, I did not get to spend too much time on that. If you guys get the chance, go give Mr. Ventos a follow. He's a fantastic FGO streamer. Sonic, thank you for the 26 months. Again, Roxas, thank you for the 57. Otherwise, I think I got all of you guys. Oh, maybe Opie and Thinazian and Twitch PB. Thank you guys for the follows as well. So, should have covered all of you guys from while I was recording. Tomorrow we have the JP event. In fact, JP should already be down for maintenance, much to my annoyance, because I did not get to spend AP down right before that. But again, we'll be covering that. I don't know if we'll roll. Probably not, because like I said, I don't really have much, but we'll see. Who knows? Maybe she's the most broken thing ever and I have to roll. So it'll just depend on how that one pans out. Again, we'll go over the new units with you guys, and then we'll probably go right back into banner review. Also, settle in for dead time on an A now, as y'all got basically nothing else going on. So it is what it is. Let me see who I'll be on tonight. I'm going to send you guys over to Miss Kuragi Tutu. I have not gotten to raid her, and she is actually on late. So, again, Tutu's a fantastic artist. If you guys have never seen her, she draws a lot of Castoria, particularly the chibi art there, and even some Morgan Le Fay. Again, but we're going to go send you over her way. Faye is also on if you guys want someone else from the team. So feel free to go check Faye out. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to go give my voice a rest. Hopefully we get done with banner review this week. Anyways, have a good one. Good luck on Barbados.